Right, folks, this is a new podcast from the two Mikes, and I'm going to give you old energy boy MG to introduce it.
Yeah, we've edited out all the nonsense from Mike Porky-Parry, so it might be a bit shorter than usual.
Ha, 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 ha.
Good morning, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry. You're listening to the two Mikes right here on talkSPORT. It's all about the fans this morning and just how important a full stadium is for the success of a football club. Brentford have just announced they're reducing the capacity of their new stadium because they'd rather spend the extra money on players and getting into the Premier League, which is where the money is, of course. Is this the future of football in this country? And our Spurs, Everton and Chelsea are going down the wrong road by building super stadiums with potentially no atmosphere at all. 08717 223344. We already know Spurs can't play at Wembley. Will they be able to play in their brand new spanking stadium next season? Coming up later in the show, we're talking Jamie Vardy. Should he have left Leicester City? And Andy Murray. Will he ever win another Grand Slam? We'll be keeping you updated with the third test at Lord's, and it's listography day as well, so get your suggestions in now. You're listening to the two Mikes with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry on talkSPORT. This is talkSPORT. We are the two Mikes, and I'm delighted to say it's time to say a very, very good morning to Mr. Mike, a Porky, a Parry. A very good morning to Mr. Parry.
A very good morning to you, Mike. It's a good morning to be talking, not a good morning to be seeing, actually.
Not a good morning to be seeing?
No.
What do you mean?
No, I thought I was having a stroke about 4:30 this morning.
Really?
Because
that's what you feel like most mornings are, 4:30, isn't it?
No, it's not. No. I was up with the lark as usual, out to feed the ducks a bit later on. But before I did,
I've got a duck expert coming on.
Oh, we have got a duck expert coming on about a duck that apparently has flown over Mount Everest.
Well, or has it?
Well, you see, we'll have to see.
Some doubt has now been cast on the story.
It certainly has. But anyway, so I'm up this morning, up with the lark and all that, and I dress my laptop before I'm going out.
Oh, yeah.
And all of a sudden, two things happened.
Right.
I got a strange feeling to the right side of my face.
Okay.
And my vision went.
Oh, dear.
And I thought,
something terrible's happened.
I thought I might have been having a sort of minor
episode.
Or an episode or something like that.
Yes.
Anyway, fortunately, to my great relief, because, of course, only 1/3 of my heart works, so I have to be very careful.
It's actually 49%.
What had happened was the little screw on the wing of my glasses had come out and my glasses had fallen off my face.
So your glasses had broken?
They're broken, yeah, exactly.
Well, how old are these glasses?
Oh, not old, 12 months.
That's all?
Yeah.
Well, why are they breaking?
Oh, I don't know, the screw come out and so I'm very relieved and I wasn't suffering a stroke and it was only my glasses, but I have got the little screws, the screwdrivers that you use to put those things back in.
Oh, yeah, why have you got a set of those?
Well, I've always had a set like that.
But why, though?
Because I'm self-sufficient.
You're self-sufficient?
Yeah, it doesn't mean I have to rush off to an optician.
How often do you normally use the screwdriver for your glasses?
Once a year to tighten them up or something like that, yeah. But anyway, the point is, this was so tiny. I've never seen such a tiny screw. Without my glasses, I couldn't see to
Have you not got a spare pair of glasses?
Well, this is the point. I've got the spare pair, but they're in the wrong house.
Oh.
And I don't have
you mean you've got no glasses at all?
Well, I have.
Well, you're not able to see anything.
Well, it is a problem because the sparest pair I've got, if you know what I mean, are about 2 glasses back.
Oh, I see.
If you see what I mean.
So you can't really have the same
Well, the left
prescription.
eye's gone off a bit since then.
Well, you know what you should have done? You should have gone down to the local Boots or chemist and got some of those disposable,
no good.
reading glasses.
No good.
That's what I've done in the past.
Left eye very wonky, right eye very good.
But it's still better than not being able to see at all.
Well, anyway, so I've got them now. So I'm one of those people now, if you see me walking, if you encounter me today, folks, and you see me walking towards you with my hands out in front of me and walking gingerly, it's because I can't quite work out where the pavement is.
You can hold on to my arm if you like.
No. But any accusations of mass bladderisation will not be the case.
Not be tolerated.
Now, so that's
Did you mind if we talk about Brentford and the story at hand?
We have hit on a brilliant development here in football.
Exactly.
Because I was thoroughly researching my journals last night and I spoke to you about this and you said, yes, you had some information as well.
Yes.
It looks like the tide is turning on the mega stadium.
Well,
now,
I'm not sure if the tide is turning because the thing is the mega stadium is very much underway in the company of Spurs, in the company of Everton, soon to be in the company of Chelsea, all of whom are building stadiums which are going to have capacities in excess of 50,000, certainly.
Yes.
And Brentford, of course, are going in the opposite direction.
Well, this is a brilliant thing, you see. Now, Matthew Benham, who is co-chairman, as I understand it, of Brentford, and Brentford are in the Championship, they had a plan to build a 20,000-seater stadium.
Yes.
And a lot of people said, well, if you've got ambitions to get in the Premier League, you won't sustain it with that.
Yeah.
Mr. Benham's view is, not only will you sustain it with a 20,000-seater stadium, but actually, they've already budgeted for 20,000 seats, but they're going to reduce it to 17,500.
Yes.
And with the surplus of the money, he will then have, he's going to give that to his manager, whoever the manager is, to boost the playing staff, to boost the number of players and improve the team to get them into the Premier League. Yes. Because this is the crux of the matter. Mr. Benham says the main source of income to football clubs these days is not like it was 30 years ago when it was through the turnstile. Yeah. It is TV revenues in the Premier League.
That's absolutely right.
That is the most vital thing. He also alludes to the fact that a smaller stadium brings greater atmosphere and helps the team to play. Yeah. Now, if you look at the Arsenal experiment, when they went from a stadium that was barely 40,000...
Highbury was a great stadium.
Yeah, it was a great... I loved it. I loved going down...
the clock end was tremendous, wasn't it?
Yeah, what was the name? Ainville Road, wasn't it? Avenel Road was the road that went down the hill to the East Stand, right? I used to love going down there when Everton were playing there. It was a magnificent stadium, the East Stand, the clock end, as you say. And I think Spurs has been a great traditional stadium as well.
Yeah, White Hart Lane, yes.
Now, Highbury's gone, and they've got a 60,000-seater stadium, and they've struggled to win major trophies, apart from the FA Cup, which I regard as a major trophy, since then. Yeah. Spurs are moving into a stadium which was budgeted, I believe, 400 million, which now could cost up to 800 million. Yeah. And will they then suffer big stadium malaise like they are doing at the moment?
It was interesting what Sam Allardyce said, wasn't it, about how stadiums want to not expand too big, because if they get too big and everybody can go to every game and everyone who's on the waiting list for a season ticket can now get a season ticket, then actually that's it's actually anti-profit for the football club in the end. Because they're taking away all the demand. Yeah. Because they're basically making everything easier to do.
That's right.
So that's a mistake.
So I want to put out the call to the fans of all clubs. Yeah. If you've got a stadium plan underway, this includes my club, Everton, of course. Is it time to rethink whether we want to go away? I think we've knocked down far too many of our traditional stadiums anyway. Yeah. Roker Park's gone, Ayresome Park's gone, Burndon Park's gone. Yeah. A lot of these stadiums from, well established over 100 years have been knocked down, and they've gone into what I would call fairly soulless replacement stadiums. Now, are we doing the right thing? Has Mr. Benham got a great idea here?
I think he has got a great idea, and here's a good tweet from Trebenog, who says this about Wales and their national team. Yeah. Wales football moved from the Millennium Stadium, which was always a quarter full with no atmosphere, to Cardiff City Stadium, where it is now full and bouncing for every game at home. And you'd have to say, one of the great things about Stamford Bridge is that it's got a fantastic atmosphere.
I love Stamford
Chelsea
Bridge.
Are going to destroy Stamford Bridge. They're going to build a bigger stadium. Yeah. As yet, we don't know exactly where.
They're there, on the same site. Well, they're redeveloping the site.
They're going to turn it around, and they're going to do what Spurs are doing, all that kind of thing. Yeah. Are they going to create another Emirates by providing too much space and too many season tickets?
That's right.
So the fans are not as excited. Look what's happened to West Ham. We talked about that yesterday.
Exactly. Now, the argument in the past has always been, and I include Goodison Park here, but I'm happy to be corrected at any turn, that the reason you can't rebuild your stadia, on the site of your current stadium, it's because if you want to expand and make them bigger, there's no room, particularly in sort of working class environments, where there are terraced houses all over the place.
There's not an awful lot of room around Stamford Bridge, to be honest.
There's a huge entrance parkway.
There is,
off the Fulham Road.
But if you want to do all the things that modern football clubs want to do,
I agree.
Put a hotel in, I know there's already
all the
one
underground
there.
that you need.
The underground stuff, all the shops and all of that stuff, and all the restaurants and the bars and everything else, hospitality areas.
Sure.
I'm not sure it's big enough there.
But what I'm saying is that if you decide, Everton's capacity is about 39,000. Yeah. Now, if Everton were to go down this route and say, actually, Mr. Benham's got quite a good idea here. Why are we spending £300 million on a new stadium on the edge of the River Mersey when we could rebuild Goodison Park with the same capacity where it is now? I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if that's at all possible.
And they'd have to then find another place to play football, of course, in the meantime, I guess, wouldn't they?
They would.
Which might be more difficult.
That would be more difficult. Or they could do one stadium a year for 4 years, one stand a year for 4 years, or something like that. I don't know. All I'm saying is, do you fans out there have an empathy with staying where you are and attending football at smaller stadiums rather than larger stadiums? Let me throw this out to Arsenal fans. Did you actually lose the spirit of your Fighting Force club when you moved from Highbury to the Emirates? Yeah. And do any of you Spurs fans fear that you are going to lose the unique atmosphere of White Hart Lane with the biggest video screens in the world at either end above the goals? You're going to lose all the intimacy of that when you move into a new stadium. Do Everton fans feel that it is worth taking the risk moving from Goodison to the new stadium?
Yeah.
I have to say at the moment, yes.
Well, look at Bolton. I don't think if you're a Spurs fan, if you're an Everton fan, or you're a Chelsea fan, you look at any new stadium and look at the fans who have been taken to those new stadiums who like it better.
No.
I don't think there's one fan out there who likes the new stadium better than the old stadium.
Who could possibly like the Stadium of Light more than used to like Roker Park? And everybody says, oh, well, those old stadiums have fallen to pieces. Yeah, OK, they were, but the whole idea was to get bigger capacities. And if we don't now need bigger capacities, why not just think about rebuilding? Right.
Absolutely.
I want you to give me a call, please. I want you to give me an MG
the number
call.
Out, please. We're running out of time already.
I'm giving out you the number in the non-mangled mouth fashion.
Hurry up.
You shut up for a minute.
Yeah, all right.
And it is 08717
Correct.
22
Yep.
33 44. Are we taking a risk by knocking down our traditional stadiums and building, what's the word? Behemoths. Behemoths in their place.
Yes.
Do we need the behemoths?
Yeah, great white sepulchres, you might call them.
Yeah.
The Ricoh Arena was supposed to hail a new dawn. Certainly is that. 12 years of steady decline. I miss Highfield Road,
exactly.
Says Pete.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Don't we love our traditional stadiums?
Yeah.
If we're only moving for a bigger capacity, you don't need that money now going through the turnstile when you've got literally hundreds of millions in riches coming from all the TV deals, which can only get bigger and better as the world of communication dissipates itself into all sorts of different delivery
channels. Do you know what we're going to try and do today as well?
Yeah.
For the first time this week, we're going to try and hit all the breaks on time.
Good idea.
We're going to try and hit the news on time and the sport on time and the cricket on time because we're going to be crossing to John Norman at Lord's for the third test all the way through the show.
Excellent.
This is talkSPORT.
OK, folks, you are listening, of course, to the Two Mics. We're on talkSPORT. We are with Wicks. Now, Wicks have lowered the price on Blue Circle general-purpose cement. If you get 25 kilograms for just £3.79 each, then you can buy 3 or more at that price.
That's right, and we send a £100 Wicks gift card to our best caller every day. So give us a call on 08717 223344. Calls to this number will cost 13 pence per minute, plus your provider's access charge. Find competition rules at talksport.com. Got some great calls coming in. We've got some great tweets here as well. Here's one from Mark, who's a Spurs fan. He says the Spurs stadium is designed especially to have fans close to the pitch and maintain the old atmosphere. I'm so excited to go there.
Okay.
Well, that's what they said about West Ham, wasn't it?
Yes.
They were going to have the fans close to the pitch. They were going to have retractable seating. That didn't really happen. I mean, the Everton experience is supposed to be going to be the same. They're going to design it that way. It doesn't always work out the way that they say.
It doesn't. Let me read you this one here. What are you saying here? Right, the middle tier of the Emirates generates more revenue than the whole of Highbury put together. Clubs look for that nowadays. Now, that's absolutely right, because...
That's where you go when you go there,
It is, actually, I do. Yeah, I've got a mate who's got a box there, and that's where we go.
You must absolutely make their purse strings burst when you go there, spend all that money that you've got.
A bit of hospitality, obviously. But, no, that is absolutely right. But, I mean, that is a current phenomenon about having very wealthy fans. And you have to say that Arsenal fans are amongst the, highest profile sort of earners in this country, you know what I mean, in terms of
also
fans.
They're going there because Arsenal have been a top four club, despite the fact that they haven't actually won the Premier League for quite a few years. They've been a top four club. At the moment, they're not. Now, another couple of seasons out of the top four, who knows if that's going to be anywhere near as busy as it is at the moment.
No, I completely agree. Another great one here. Somebody says, good work, chaps, spotting this with Brentford. Mr. Benham is an amazing character, and he's definitely ripping up convention. And there's some Liverpool fans, by the way, and I can't find the precise one at the moment, but thank you very much for getting in touch.
I've got one here from Neil, who says, I think Liverpool have done the right thing, staying at Anfield and expanding. I would say we could go to 60,000, but that's probably enough. I think you've absolutely done the right thing by staying at Anfield, because what an iconic ground, what a fantastic setting, and what a wonderful sort of football cathedral. Why would you want to get rid of it?
I totally agree with that. And now when I'm, in the cab going up to Goodison, crikey, get halfway from Liverpool City Centre to Goodison, you can see the roof of the Anfield new stand.
Right.
And I agree, building upon the stadium you already got is the way forward. But you see, there's a compromise here. Kevin says, I bet Southampton fans prefer St Mary's to the heap that was the Dell. Now, yes, I totally agree with that. I remember going to the Dell when Alan Ball signed for Southampton. I went to see Laurie McMenemy there, and Laurie McMenemy wouldn't let TV cameras in because he said, I'm not having overseas TV cameras coming near and saying, oh, sorry, it was Kevin Keegan. He said, England captain Kevin Keegan signs for this little club on the south coast, and look what a dump the ground is. He said, I'm not even letting them in.
Right.
So they changed and went to another one, but the St Mary's ground they've moved to is about the same capacity and size of the Dell.
Right.
So they've not got ambitious and built one twice the size.
Well, maybe those are the only fans who are going to ring us and tell us that they're looking forward to another season at the new stadium.
That's right.
08717 223344. Let's talk to Vernon, who's a Chelsea fan. Hi, Vernon.
Yes.
Hi, NG. Hi, Porky.
Yeah, hello, mate.
Lovely to talk to you. I completely agree with both of you. I do not like the new stadiums. I think they're very clinical. They lack something. Even the new Wembley compared to the old Wembley, which I used to go to a couple of times. I think with Chelsea, because it's my team, I'm really worried about the development of Stamford Bridge.
Yes.
As you said, MG, the site is a little bit too small, and it's surrounded on one side by a cemetery, on another side by a railway line, and it's going to take 4 years to build. And to make room for this massive stadium, they're going to go downwards. So the pitch is going to be well below street level. It's an incredible project. It's going to cost £1 billion to build it.
Right.
And 4 years, it means we're going to be in the wilderness. And I think we're going to be stuck at Wembley, which is filling us all full of dread.
Yes.
Because like you, MG, I cannot stand the place. It's horrendous. And for most Chelsea fans come from Surrey, Kent, Hampshire, south of the river, and to travel to Wembley, especially midweek and back again, is going to be an absolute nightmare.
Well, it will be. And also, I mean, you look at Spurs' experience, it's not going to be encouraging you to think that Chelsea are going to have any better of a time there.
No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Now, what you said before about just sticking to the old site, and Stamford Bridge, when it gets going, is a very, very good atmosphere. And as you just said, the pitch is very close to the stands. And I think that makes it very intimidating for the other team. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think that's where a lot of clubs have gone wrong. I think Arsenal went wrong at the Emirates by making the pitch a little bit too far away.
That's right.
From the stand.
Yeah. And also the great thing about when I'm over at Chelsea is I was there when Jose Mourinho was there the last time. The last time I was there.
Yeah.
But I was sitting right behind him, and you could see everything that he's doing, everything that he's talking about, all the people that he's interacting with. You know, you real sense that you're right next to him.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's brilliant. We're going to miss all that, and I just hope and pray that obviously the people at Tottenham, it sounds like they've done it right. They've learnt maybe from Arsenal, and I'm hoping that Roman Abramovich and his team. I mean, I know that Roman Abramovich employed 2 master architects to design Stamford Bridge. I mean, it's the most amazing
It is. It's a fantastic architectural project, and it's very, very expensive. But whether or not it'll work to the same advantage to the players, Vernon, after what you've said, I'm not sure.
Absolutely.
Vernon,
thanks very much indeed.
Thanks, Vernon,
kicking us off. We'll take loads more of your calls shortly.
Let's make one thing clear here. Bill has contacted us, right? And I don't think he's trying to be rude, but he says Brentford's new stadium will hold 7,500. Their present ground holds 12,000.
Do you mean 17,000?
17,500, sorry. Their present ground holds 12,000.
Yes.
You got your facts right here, fellas. Well, Bill, can I just say to you, the plan for the new stadium was originally 20,000, right?
Yes.
And what's happened is the co-owner, Mr. Benham, has decided to reduce the ambitions of the new stadium from the 20,000 plan to a 17,500 plan. So that's what he wants as a future capacity for his stadium, OK? We all know it's 12,000 at the moment. We also all know that Brentford are second from bottom of the Championship.
Yeah, they haven't won a game yet, I'm afraid.
Haven't won a game yet.
Which is a slight flaw in the argument about getting into the Premier League.
Well, yes, but his argument for that is that the funds that will be saved from reducing the new stadium plan from 20 to 17.5 will be given to the manager.
Yes.
Be a substantial amount of money to buy players to get them into the Premier League. That's his master plan.
Quite a few people, Porky, pointing out that your suggestion that the Dell and St Mary's are the same size is actually incorrect.
Okay.
Because, in fact, the Dell was about half the size of the new St Mary's.
It was, but
15,000 to about 30,000.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But because the Dell, of course, was built in an era when people could stand, it was originally designed for 30,000 people, but then they had to put seats in because of the changing laws. Yeah. That's why they knocked it down and built St Mary's.
Right, but they're not the same size anyway, so thank you for pointing that out.
Well, yeah, but the two Wembleys aren't the same size, but they take the same number of people for the same reason. The old Wembley...
Why can't I just admit you're wrong?
The old Wembley was half the size of the new Wembley. But because the new Wembley has 100,000 or 90,000 seats, it is exactly the same capacity.
Yeah.
In fact, the old Wembley took more in the days when people stood.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for just pointing out that you were wrong.
Let's
talk to John Norman, who's at Lords watching day one of the third test with the West Indies. John, a very good morning to you.
Well, good morning to you guys.
Yeah,
News from the middle, hello Mike, is that Joe Root has lost the toss for the first match in 5. And so the West West Indies, who are unchanged, will bat first. England announcing yesterday they've made the one change. Toby Rowland-Jones in place of Chris Wokes after England's fingers burnt badly at Headingley. This the last test of the summer, but the first ever at Lord's to start in September, with this series very much alive after West Indies' logic-defying victory over 5 days in Leeds. And it means that as we go into this final test match, so much at stake. The Wisden Trophy, places in the upcoming Ashes squad, maybe even an IPL contract. However, being played, unfortunately, against the backdrop of devastating scenes back in the visitors' homeland. Play does get underway at 11 o'clock here at Lord's. The West Indies winning the toss, and they're going to have a bat.
John, thank you very much indeed. A couple of people have texted in to say that they actually do prefer the new stadium. Here's one from David. He says, the Stadium of Light is much better than Broker Park. When doing well, the atmosphere is immense. Yes. I, for one, would never go back. And Jack, who's a Leicester fan, said it can work the other way. Our new home, the King Power, has maintained the great atmosphere of Filbert Street. Yeah. Well, if that's happened, that's probably been because it's not a super stadium, I would say.
I totally agree. If the ambitions are to replace the stadium with one that's like it, and you have realistic ambitions about the amount of people you can attract into your stadium, that's great to get a new stadium. But the problem is, if the stadium gets too big, and because they've got all seating these days, you know, Highbury wasn't built for all seating, but the Emirates was, and you lose something in the transition.
I think you do, and certainly from Arsenal's point of view, they've lost an awful lot in terms of atmosphere and in terms of capabilities, in terms of what they've won. Now, Simon Jordan, former owner of Crystal Palace, is going to join us because he's going to have a view on whether the Brentford plan is the way forward. Yes. Simon, a very good morning to you. Welcome.
Morning, boys.
Morning,
Mr.
Simon.
Parry.
Yes.
Nice to speak to you.
And
yourself.
I'd like
to get a little apology for those dreadful things you said about me all those years ago before we start.
Simon, fortunately you weren't there that night and it all got lost in translation, believe me. When you were sitting in your villa out in Marbella and all that, and you heard these ridiculous miscreant reports from Selhurst Park, I can assure you
is that
it
an
was
apology,
not like that. Well, I mean...
That doesn't sound like much of an apology.
Doesn't sound like an apology.
I'll take that as a Parry apology.
Yes, yes, please.
I think that's about as good as you get. This is a guy who won't even admit when he's got something wrong, Simon. You know, so the idea that he would ever say sorry is an extraordinary state of affairs.
That is very harsh. Simon, I can just say you've improved the quality of this show immensely by joining us. I want to thank you.
We got a clean slate, Mr. Parry. Away we go.
Away we go. So the Brentford plan, it would seem, is not to concentrate on building a much, much bigger stadium. Of course, it's going to be bigger than the Griffin Park, the old one. But, I mean, maybe they're onto something because we know from so many fans of clubs who have gone to bigger stadiums and more anonymous stadiums and places where the atmosphere wasn't so good, it affects the whole experience of the fan, doesn't it? I mean, Crystal Palace, you'd have to say now, is in need of a new stadium because you know it's not in great shape. But I don't know what the plans are for that. But what do you think about this, Simon?
Well, I think it's all about how you do it, guys. I mean, ultimately everything has to evolve and everything has to change. And we're not just talking about the old generation of fans that are steeped in heritage, like the guys that are shouting and screaming about leaving the Berlin. But it's also about the next generation that we do have to accept, or a digital generation that look at things very differently and expect things very differently. And you do have to, understand that football has moved on now. It's a much more, whether we like it or not, homogenised environment, and people expect far more from stadia than they've previously got. Now, of course, every stadium move is often predicated not just about increasing the facilities, but it's about increasing the size and being able to get more people in the ground. Now, that's all well and good if the achievements of the team match that. On the whole, my experience of most new stadia has been that it has worked well. Now, obviously, there's exceptions, with Coventry moving out of Highfield Road and moving to the Rico has been an unprecedented disaster, but that's for a variety of reasons. But if the owners of the club understand the DNA of the fans and understand the fabric of the core fan base and the next generation fan base, then they should be able to build a stadia that meets all the expectations, both of the growth opportunities the club wants for more people in there, alongside the facilities, both for the away supporters in the away end, which often is overlooked because we don't care that much as a home team, but also from the fact that, that fans need an environment which is reflective of the prices that they're paying to go into football stadia these days and the experience that they expect to have.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
In a long-winded fashion.
Sure. No, not at all, Simon. I agree with all that. Now, Simon, you've been a very successful businessman, and you may know Mr. Benham, Matthew Benham, who's in charge of Brentford. One of his arguments is that because now the funds that you get from live TV broadcasts is so enormous, but, the money that Sky is currently giving football clubs, they don't need to rely on gate money anymore, and therefore, is it worth going to the enormous cost, in Spurs' case, £800 million, of building huge stadiums when most of your money's coming from TV?
Well, that's very stupid. I mean, first and foremost, Arsenal take 120 million through their gate receipts, which is probably somewhere between 25 to 30% of their turnover. If you are prepared to sit there, as football people often are, and sit there like Morlocks and say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's ridiculous, because you're not always going to have a broadcaster that's going to sit there and pay $5 billion every 3 years for domestic rights.
Yeah.
You have to generate your revenue streams. You have to deliver a product which is fit for purpose and ultimately generate those revenues. So Brentford might be running that alongside their argument of not having an academy. Both of those things, in my view, are flawed.
Yeah, I see. OK.
I mean, Brentford's an interesting club, isn't it? Because they like this analytics business that they work on everything to, and they've got this kind of strange attitude towards, making decisions based on logarithms and all this kind of thing. I mean, they are sort of two spots from the bottom of the league at the moment, so I don't know whether that is actually working.
No, in fairness to Brentford, they've done very well over the last 2 or 3 seasons, and they are a well-run football club. Ron Node started that revolution back, 15, 20 years ago when he walked out of Palace with a big bag of money. And Brentford have moved on through the gears from being a perennial smaller club into a club that can sell players for 12 or 15 million quid to Aston Villa. So there's a lot right about Brentford. The idea that you can just take player statistics from as the buying criteria is a bit like David Sullivan using Rothman's guide to advise managers how to buy players in the past. It's not the right way to go. It's part and parcel of the way that you look at players. Of course, you should have a statistical evaluation, because too often it's done on the back of the fag packet. But it can't be the only way, boys. It's part of a set of ingredients, but not the only way. But I don't think just looking at Brentford in isolation and saying, because they're second from bottom of the league at this moment in time, 6, 7, 8 games into a season, is an analogy of how well they're doing as a club over the last 5 or 6 years.
No, absolutely right. Now, the other issue here, Simon, to me, is take Mr. Benham's view that, all we've got to do is get into the Premier League and then we've got like 130 million a year. Is it right? Is it right that a club like Brentford, if they got into the Premier League, or Bournemouth, who are there now, or your former club, Crystal Palace, should take the same share of the spoils from the TV money that the big top 5 do?
Yes, it's called collective bargaining. You take the benefit of the Premier League and all that goes with it. You take the benefit of the football pyramid, where football creditor rules are beneficial, so transfer fees have to be paid by clubs even if clubs start to fail.
Yeah.
You can't have it on one side of the argument and not on the other. I know Liverpool, Man United, Arsenal, and all of those guys, Tottenham as well, probably Man City and Chelsea, are trying to be the big six and negotiate a different sort of bargaining position for themselves. Well, they can do that with their corporate sponsorship. They can do that with their £40, £50 million shirt sponsorship deals or their £150 million stadium renaming rights. But as far as collective bargaining is concerned, this is not me arguing because Crystal Palace are a smaller club, and I don't categorise them, with due respect, in the same brackets as Huddersfield or Bournemouth or Brentford. No. I think they're a club that, obviously under my tenure and in previous tenures, was always a club that had this opportunity to be the team of the 80s that they once were projected to be.
Yes.
Right? But I think that this idea that the top 6 clubs believe that they drive everything about the Premier League because they have a reasonably good digital footprint and because they're reasonably established brand names is a fool's errand. It's wrong, it's self-centred, and the Premier League is a collective sum of all its parts.
And would we end up being like Spain if it happened, where the top 2 clubs get like 80% of the money?
I mean, if the money dries up as well, it's possible
that's not right, because the league has changed its distribution.
Yes.
Back in the day, Real Madrid and Barcelona took the lion's share of it. It's now being moved towards a Premier League model where it is dropped in a far more proportionate representation rather than what it was before. So that's not the right analogy.
No, it's not the right analogy.
Although there hasn't really. I mean, I know it's only just happened,
but in the past,
but what I'm saying is it hasn't led to anything different at the top 3.
No,
it's still Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Atletico. But Simon, listen, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Simon.
your time, and I'm sorry the apology was not more forthcoming from Porky. Got a great one here from Gift Gaff. There's a spectacular admission from Porky. Who knew that he had a screw loose? Unsurprising to us regular listeners. We want to hear from more of you, of course, out there. 08717 2233 44. Wayne says this rather unkindly about Leicester. Leicester Stadium is 12,000 seats bigger. The atmosphere is there still because of all the glory hunters that fill it now. This is talkSPORT.
I said yeah. I said yeah. What they say.
This is the Two Mics on talkSPORT. We're with Wicks, and Wicks have lowered the price on Blue Circle general purpose cement. Get 25 kilograms for just $3.79 each when you buy 3 or more. Now, I've got a bone to pick with you, actually, before we take any more calls.
But we
want to hear from you, of course.
First thing you've shared with me for a long time.
Well, it doesn't actually mean I'm going to share anything with you. 08717 223344 is the number. Do you realise that you've somehow managed to attract the interest in parts of your sort of very many commercial activities? Birdseye.
Yes.
The makers of fish fingers.
Well, really?
You had a tweet yesterday.
Yes, I did.
Where you said, completely erroneously, by the way, I usually take a break at 1 p.m. for a fish finger sandwich.
Yes, that's right.
They've retweeted it.
I know.
You didn't say bird's eye fish finger
No,
sandwiches.
I didn't, no.
So, I mean, what's going on?
Well,
is this another kind of commercial venture you're going to get yourself involved in?
Well, I will have to talk to the Bird's Eye people later because, I don't want them to necessarily use my name in vain, which, of course, they're not. They're using my name as a, presumably, an endorsement of my enjoyment of their fish fingers.
Well, except you don't mention that it's their fish fingers you like eating.
Yeah, but I mean, they've assumed they are. Yeah. So if you see a frozen fish food lorry heading to Stockbroker Belt, Surrey, anytime soon, it could well be my delivery of Bird's Eye fish fingers. A year's supply will do nicely. Thank you very much indeed.
The Stockbroker Belt, Surrey, where they sell the most expensive beer in the nation.
Do you know what?
We're going to talk about in a little while.
Yeah, I was going to talk to you about this.
And you can if you like.
I was, because the point is, you see, when I told you about this survey, you sniffed at it and said, no, Central London's where they sell the most expensive beer. That's where the most expensive property is. That's where the wealthiest people live.
To be honest, I'm not sure that whoever's done this survey has done it right, because to be fair, there are plenty of places we could take you to around Central London where the cost of beer is ridiculously high.
Well, let me tell you this. This is from the Beer Bible, which is called the Good Pub Guide, right? Okay. First time in the publication's 30-year history that the capital, London, has not come out on top of the beer survey.
Okay.
And that's because the most expensive beer is where the best people live. Stockbroker Belt, Surrey, £4.40 a pint.
What do you mean where the best people live?
Well, they do.
You come from the north of England. You're constantly banging on about what a marvellous place it is, despite the fact that you deserted the place.
No.
Not only did you desert it, but your entire family live in the south of England.
Well,
you're going to now say that the best people, i.e. the worst people, live in the north of England. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not.
Is that what you are saying that? I think that's a disgraceful
live in the north of England. When I go and stay at the Dorchester of the North, at Chester Grosvenor Hotel, I meet some wonderful people, believe me.
Really?
Now,
because they're all from the south.
So now, a pint of beer now in Stockbroker Belt costs £4.40, and in central London, £4.20. But down in your way, in Sussex, it's a miserly £3.82.
Well, that's good, though.
So you are
literally... That's a good thing.
You are worth 38 pence a pint, less than I am. Okay.
You think that's important,
don't you?
I do. That makes your day, doesn't it?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
That's a pathetic attitude to have.
No, it's not.
I would rather live somewhere where the beer is cheaper than live somewhere where sort of a lot of jumped up little, I don't know, businessmen live who think it's a great idea to pay more for things because if you're paying more for it, somehow it's better.
Well, you probably think that the audience are going to rise to you because you like to say you mix with the masses, okay?
Well, I don't necessarily mix with anybody in particular, but what I'm saying is it's a ludicrously pathetic attitude to think that because you pay more for your beer, that somehow you're surrounded by better people.
Do you know
you don't even like people.
Do you know where the cheapest beer is?
I would say probably, I don't know, Carlisle.
Well, it's Herefordshire, actually.
Is it?
And that's where they make a lot of cider. Then Yorkshire, put dinner in oven, that's £3.31. Shropshire, £3.33.
Yes.
Derbyshire. All right, my duck.
Also, I bet you the beer's actually. I bet you the beer is better everywhere else as well, because I don't know of any beer that's made in Stockbroker Belt, Surrey. Do you?
Yes.
What beer is made there?
Framlington.
What?
Framlington beer.
Framlington.
Yeah.
What's that like?
It's good.
Is it?
Excellent. And Wandle. Wandle River beer is made from water from the River Wandle.
And where's that?
It winds through Stockbroker Belt.
Does it?
And then you nearly got it right with Carlisle. It's Cumbria, £3.38.
Oh, well, there you go.
And the best places, Surrey, London, Hertfordshire, which is north of London.
Hertfordshire is north of London.
And guess what? Guess where else the most expensive is? Scottish Islands.
Oh, yeah.
Scottish Islands, like, the Hebrides.
Well,
and all
that's
that.
expensive.
Yeah, it's expensive.
Yeah, well, it would be, because getting things onto an island costs a lot of money.
Yeah, I suppose you're right, yeah. Isle of Wight, $3.73. I don't often go there for a pint of beer, actually, but I should, because it's...
Did you say Framlingham beer?
Framlington or Framlington.
Framlingham beer is in Suffolk.
That's it, Suffolk, yeah, that's right.
Well, let's not stop where we're about.
Okay, well, look for Wandle. Look for Wandle beer.
Wandle beer?
Yeah, from the River Wandle.
Okay.
Wandle Breweries.
W-A-N-D-L-E.
W-A-N-D-L-E. It's a river with lots of fish in it.
Okay.
We'll
look that up in a minute. I don't think I've ever tried it. Let's talk to John, who's a Fulham fan. Hello, John. Very good morning to you.
Hello, boys. How are you doing?
Hi, John. Very well, thank you.
What would you like to say?
I'd like to talk about the stadium business. Being a Fulham supporter, years ago they had plans to build a brand new stadium in some milk yard or something up Shepherd's Bush Way, and luckily enough it fell through, and they were able to revamp the stadium at Craven Cottage. Now, my point is, if they'd have moved into a new stadium, which would have been able to take more supporters, now in our present situation, we'd be playing in front of, much less fans with a lot less atmosphere, which would affect the team's performance.
Sorry, you were going to build a smaller stadium, were you?
No, they were going to build another stadium in Shepherd's Bush.
Yeah, why would there have been fewer fans there then?
No, what I'm saying is, if we were there now, if they had done it,
yes,
and because we've gone down in the league, there would be less fans going in to watch the game.
Yeah, well, that always figures, doesn't it? When you go down, you lose fans.
Well, I suppose so. I'm not quite sure what the point is there, John, but listen, thank you for calling in. We'll talk some more about this coming up because we're running out of time.
Yeah.
Got a great one here from somebody who's saying, how long before we see old Captain Birdseye himself, Mike Parry's face on a box of fish fingers?
Yeah, that's a bit harsh,
because Andy says, obviously, the resemblance is beginning to show.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've got lots more to do. We've got many more things to talk about. We're going to talk about Jamie Vardy, talk about Andy Murray. We've got also coming up listography, so we want you to give us some ideas of subjects to talk about that we can tell you 3 stories about. This is talkSPORT.
Don't get me wrong, if I'm looking kind of dazzled, I see neon lights whenever you walk by. Don't get me wrong, if you say hello.
Tom says, won't the price of beer be the same price for Porky wherever he drinks? Because Wetherspoons is the same price everywhere.
No, it's not actually. Or at least I don't think it is.
I think it is.
I think you can get beers in some pubs if you're in there at the right time for as little as sort of £1.50 and that sort of stuff.
Really?
Yeah, I've been in pubs where
I'm sure you have. It's the sort of places you hang out.
Yeah.
Now, that beer that you suggested I look up, Wandle beer, is brewed in Battersea.
Yes, I know, but it comes from the River Wandle, which runs through
I've asked you to
Stockbroker
name me a beer that's made in Surrey.
I've
So far, you
I've
haven't.
just told you.
Battersea's not in
All
Surrey.
right, well, look up Surrey beers and you'll find a few then, because
I'm
a lot of craft
asking
beers
you.
around. No, I don't talk.
You don't know any.
about Surrey,
Right.
And go to 20 different pubs
so
a week.
worked up about.
20 different pubs a week,
You
tasting
don't go to 20 different pubs a week.
Their craft ales.
How about that other tweet you put out yesterday in
What was
which
that?
you suggested that you only take in 10 units a week
Yes.
of alcohol?
Yes, that's about right.
As I said in my return tweet yesterday afternoon, you had 10 units yesterday afternoon.
Oh, really? Yes, I see. Just trying to turn the audience against
I'm
me
not
again,
trying
are
to
you?
turn anybody against
Okay.
you. I'm just trying to tell people the truth about you, which you seem to want to conceal at all times.
I think it's about time I read out a more responsible note, which came to me from somebody. I've lost it now.
Oh, really?
It said something like, Porky, I thought you used to be a duplicitous individual and a bit of a plank, but
Are
the
you
way
just
you
making
stood up...
tweets up now?
No, here. This is Chris. He says, my respect for the Porkmeister has gone up enormously.
Yeah.
I always thought he was a bit of a grovelling plank, but he
Correct.
stood his ground against Simon Jordan and was magnificent in his responses. And that comes from Chris. Okay?
Yeah, well, thank you very much
Thank you,
indeed,
Chris. Yeah. And by the way, I think Simon Jordan's a great guy.
I think that's called being damned with faint praise, to be honest.
I like successful people because I resonate with them, and Simon is certainly that.
They don't like you, though, do they?
They certainly do.
That's the problem.
Yes,
Now, why are we playing a Pretenders song there?
We're playing the Pretender song there because Chrissy Hind, who is a legend in her own lifetime, is 66 today.
66?
Can you imagine that? 66.
Goodness gracious.
Now, she used to be married, didn't she, to Ray Davis?
She did.
And
she also used to be married to Jim Kerr from Simple Minds.
Did she?
Yeah.
Well, Jim Kerr was also married to Patsy Kensit.
Yeah, it's a very small world.
It's a very small world, isn't it? Yeah.
And he also went to school with Alan Brazil.
Jim Kerr did, same class.
Yeah.
And he went on to become a great rock star, became a Scottish international footballer.
Yeah.
Gracie Hind also, I think, didn't she marry some guru-type guy?
Guru-type?
Yeah, in New York, because I remember her...
No.
You know the carriages that trot around Central Park?
Yes.
They're all lined
I
up
don't think
there.
they do anymore, I think they've done away with them. Because
Central
there was
Park
a cruelty issue with the horses.
Was there?
And I think one of the things that the new mayors have done was to get rid of them.
Have they banned them all together?
I think so,
I thought they were still there.
No, I think they've gone.
Not in the same numbers.
Well, I mean,
anyway,
when we go to New York next week, you can
we'll find out.
Yeah.
But anyway, I remember distinctly seeing a picture of her getting married to somebody and being in one of those carriages, trotting around Central Park South. And I think the chap concerned was some sort of mystic guru type fellow.
Really?
Yeah. But anyway,
she is... Her spouse is called Lucio somebody.
Oh, yeah, it might be him.
Lucio Brieva.
Oh, right, OK, that's good. But anyway, the point is that she has been a legend with the Pretenders.
Yeah.
And although I like that song an awful lot, she made so many good songs. And
She did.
the one I really, really liked and used to play at high volume was Back on the Chain Gang.
Back on the Chain Gang, it's a good song, yeah. I saw them once, actually, at Hammersmith Odeon.
Oh, yes?
I think he's now Hammersmith Apollo.
OK.
When they did. In fact, it was the first time I ever met Rod Stewart. You know, I've told you that story of getting thrown out of the rock concert. I met him in a pub. There was a pub.
Got you back in.
And he got us back in, in a pub around the back of Hammersmith Odeon.
Yes.
But it's concerts for Kampuchea, which was a country in those days which was under siege somewhere in Southeast Asia near
what was it called?
Cambodia. Kampuchea.
I didn't even know that was a country.
Yeah, it was. It was a sort of a region near Cambodia somewhere where there was a civil war going on, all sorts of horrible things. So they raised a load of money for it.
Right.
And it was The Who, The Pretenders, The Clash, Ian Jury, and The Specials.
Yeah, hit me with your rhythm stick. Hit me.
Absolutely incredible lineup of people.
Yeah, amazing.
Tremendous.
And
I used to see her in Belsize Park as well, because she used to live there.
She's lived there, obviously, yeah. And the other person whose birthday is today, and I want a public vote now as to whether or not we should play this song or not, is, of course, well, it's not of course, but it's Gloria Gaynor.
Gloria
who
Gaynor.
is 68.
68.
I Will Survive.
Yeah.
Now, that is one of the sort of legendary disco songs of all time.
Disco hits, absolutely.
Disco hits.
Yeah.
And did you notice, for about 10 years afterwards, every time a popular celebrity female went through some kind of separation or divorce, what they used to do is they used to invite a load of photographers to somebody's party and then tell the party host or the DJ or something, put on I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor, and then get a picture of her dancing defiantly, I will survive. And the one I remember most was that...
It's a bit corny, isn't it?
It's very corny. That Grant Bovey guy who ran off with Anthea Turner.
Yes.
Who was a quotes property developer, but seems to run into a few problems with building houses and all that, or selling them anyway.
Yeah.
I remember that his wife, who I think was called Della Bovey, wanted to try and steal her husband back.
Did she not get him back at one point?
Well, I think she did, and then he kind of left again, I think. It's a bit like the plot of Dr. Foster, and I'm going to give a special Porky-vision review of the Dr. Foster programme tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Oh, it's brilliant.
Why?
It's brilliant, yeah. Well,
tomorrow's the Porky quiz.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, we're
going
away
to do it on the
next
NFL, The NFL season begins this weekend.
I told you I would take questions on the NFL.
Well, you told me you didn't want to do
that.
No, you told me you didn't want to do it.
No,
but we've taken a deliberate decision to row you out of the decision-making process.
No.
And the producers and myself have decided that it's going to be on the NFL.
I am in accord with that, and I was very much up for it, because I followed the NFL very, very closely when I lived and worked in America, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, good.
And I hope there will be a few historical questions there, because, of course, I know the history of the NFL going back
I've no idea.
years.
The independent quizmasters will be setting the questions, as ever.
Anyway, Della Bovey goes to this party, right, just after, the newspapers are full of, Anthea Turner's run off with her husband and all that.
Yeah.
And she did exactly that, put on I Will Survive, and then she's dancing away. Della Bovey gave, a message to her husband, she will survive and all that.
Yeah.
Thought it was a great record.
This is the worst of the kind of tabloid excesses you're talking about here, aren't you? Setting up pictures and stories in order to put something in the paper.
Yeah, the sort of thing we used to earn a living doing.
Well,
yes.
the sort of thing you used to earn a living doing. I was never quite as low as that. Wimbledon has sent me a tweet. It says, Wimbledon Brew makes the best real ale in the area.
Oh, Wimbledon Brew. Okay, there you go.
Have you ever had Wimbledon Brew?
Not to my knowledge.
No, you haven't, have you?
But,
of course you haven't.
Yeah, but... I would enjoy a pint if anybody out there is.
Well, don't worry, people aren't going to start sending you free beer.
Yeah, that's right.
Brian says Porky doesn't go to 20 different pubs a week. He goes to the same pub 20 times a week. That's probably about right, actually.
Well, it's closer to the mark, I have to say. Yeah.
Now, coming up, we're going to be speaking to Rob Tanner from the Leicester Mercury.
We certainly are.
Jamie Vardy gave a couple of interviews yesterday in which he talked about the fact that he didn't go to another club during the summer.
That's right.
Should not be taken by anyone as a message that he won't do so in the future.
Yes, that's right.
Now, I'm not quite quite sure why he would say something like that.
Well, to start off with, I think he was pushing this new, academies.
He's got an academy, I think.
Started an academy, that's right. And part of the reason he's done it is that he feels, and I think this is very commendable, he wants to give something back to football.
Yes.
Having come out of non-league football and got to the height of the Premier League, he won a Premier League Champions medal.
Yeah.
He wants to try and provide that opportunity to other players, which I think is very commendable indeed.
Yeah.
It's about giving something back. And during the course of unveiling this academy, of course, he was asked, well, yes, OK, you did win a Premier. Did you feel that maybe you should have moved on?
Yeah.
Last summer, or maybe immediately after, wasn't it? Immediately after they won their league title.
Yes.
When there was great speculation he was going to go to Arsenal. Did you make a mistake then? And, of course, he says that, he is very, very happy with the way his career plan's gone, considering it started in non-league football.
Yeah.
So...
Well, you couldn't be unhappy. I mean, he's making an absolute fortune. He's playing for a team that have already won the Premier League.
Yes.
He's one of their top players, so he gets well treated and all that.
The only thing I would say is why it's particularly relevant at the moment is this weekend Leicester, of course, play Chelsea.
Yes.
And Chelsea will have two players starting for them, N'Golo Kante
That's right.
and
Drinkwater,
who won the Premier League with him, but have now moved on to what you can only describe as a bigger club with greater opportunities and Champions League football.
Right.
So will Jamie Vardy reflect on what might have been
when he
lines up against his former
teammates?
teammates?
Might do, but I mean, it's relatively late in his career now, and so it was relatively late in his career that he won the Premier League and all that.
And that's why some will say, well, maybe he should have cashed in on it immediately then. Maybe he should have accepted the offer, if the offer was ever there from Arsenal, to have moved on.
Yeah, but I think he's done the right thing by staying with Leicester, because I think...
I don't.
Well, I wouldn't expect you to, because you don't believe in loyalty. The bottom line is that I think he's loyal to Leicester because he believes that Leicester gave him the opportunity to win a Premier League title. And they gave him the opportunity to make the kind of money that he's making.
Yes.
And I don't think you just walk away from that.
Yeah, but that, again, is very commendable and all that. But, commendability doesn't necessarily end up with life giving you what you deserve. And what he really deserved was to have cashed in on the sensational conclusion to his career at Leicester, and that is in winning the Premier League. And he should have then gone somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm not sure, because an awful lot of people have always said, for example, if you go to Spurs and Harry Kane's in the side, you're not going to get a game. You go to Arsenal, they've now got Lacazette and Giroud.
Well, they didn't have Lacazette when they were after Vardy.
No, they didn't, but they would have probably got somebody like Lacazette, so he would not been playing first-team football. He's always going to get a game at Leicester, and that's where he should stay, I think.
Yeah, I don't. I think he should have cashed in it. But that's only my own view.
Well, why don't you ask for people to call us and give us their view?
Well, I'm going to do that, if you would just shut your mouth.
Well, I keep trying to move you on because we're taking too long.
I'm trying to give you the non-mangle-mouthed version of the number, and it's 08717 223344. Did Jamie Vardy blow his chances of actually crowning the greatest achievement of his life, winning a Premier League medal, with something even better? And if you are a fan of a club like I'm of Everton, I would actually have enjoyed seeing Jamie Vardy join my club.
Oh, so that's
Everton,
what it's all about. You want to go to Everton?
Because I think Everton is a bigger club than Leicester, with the greatest respect to Leicester.
I don't think anyone would argue with that.
Although Leicester are more recently, of course, Premier League champions.
Yeah. Well, Everton have never been Premier League champions.
No, they haven't, I agree. But we have been league champions on 9 occasions. So
before the Premier League, though.
That's right.
Ancient history.
OK, folks, you, of course, are listening to the Two Mics. We're on talkSPORT. We are with Wix. Now, Wix have lowered the price on Blue Circle General Purpose Cement. Get 25 kilograms for just £3.79 each when you buy 3 or more.
Exactly right. We're going to talk to Rob Tanner from Leicester Mercury very, very shortly. But let's go to John Norman first, who's watching the cricket, of course, for us at Lord's. First day of the third test. John.
Well, good morning to you guys. It's been eventful, actually. West Indies 6 without loss, and maybe on the way to their first boundary of the morning. Kieran Powell just guiding a ball through the vacant kind of region down to third man, 4-4, so that makes it 10 without loss. Brathwaite and Powell opening up for Windies, and Jimmy Anderson opening the bowling from the pavilion end. 3 away from wicket number in tests, 500. Should be 2 away. Alistair Cook has just put down Craig Brathwaite at first slip, and unfortunately for the former England captain, it was a bit of a dolly to go with the 2 that he put down on the last day at Headingley. He put down the same batsman, actually went on 4. He went on to score 95, Brathwaite, 3 to his name when Cook put him down in this innings. We shall see if it's just as costly. West Indies 10 without loss.
John, thanks very much indeed. We'll be going back to John Norman down at Lord's. A couple of tweets before we talk to Rob. Ben says, I'm with you 100% MG on Vardy. Refreshing in this age of greed to see a player pledge loyalty to his club. And Charlie says, go to Arsenal to win the Premier League. Nope, no, and no. I think I see what he's doing there. And also, somebody saying that they'd quite like to have Jamie Vardy at Liverpool. This is from Rock Management. He says it would be like having Ian Rush back, a poacher, a fox in the box.
That's
right. Mike Parry thinks Jamie Vardy should have gone somewhere else. I think he's done the right thing to stay at Leicester. Let's talk to Rob Tanner and see what he makes of it all. Rob, a very good morning to you. Welcome.
Good morning, guys.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Indeed.
It's kind of unusual, we were saying earlier, for a footballer to get permission from his club to sort of go off and do something on his own and give an interview in which he reveals quite a lot of interesting things about his time at Leicester.
Yeah, he was. I was at the event down in the Sky headquarters earlier in the week, and he was there to promote his V9 Academy. Obviously, he was going to get asked questions about other things as well. It's been a pretty eventful transfer window for Leicester City, and certainly his name was at the forefront of that for a lot of the speculation. So he was bound to get those sort of questions. But Leicester City are pretty relaxed with Jamie Vardy.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. Now, the point is, Rob, how much truth was there in the fact that he could have gone to Arsenal after you won the Premier League title? And do you have any indication from Jamie that he feels it was a missed opportunity now that Leicester have returned to the ranks of normality?
Well, he was very close to going. They'd put a very tempting offer on the table for him. And he considered it hard and eventually decided that for footballing reasons, not for financial, because the package that Arsenal were offering was better than the new contract at Leicester City. But he opted to stay at Leicester City because the team is built around him. He's integral to it. He likes being that talisman striker. And I think he also feels a sense of loyalty to the club for giving him not only his chance in the professional ranks, but sticking by him when he had a really tough first season in the Championship, when, by his own admission, he started to doubt whether he could cut the mustard at that level. But their patience with him certainly bore fruit.
Does that not indicate a lack of ambition, really? Because we always kind of knew, well, as much as we knew, that Leicester City probably wouldn't replicate their Premier League victory. So he was always on a loser, wasn't he, in the second season, in the first season afterwards?
Well, the second season he had Champions League football.
Well, exactly. So I mean, that's not lack of ambition, and quite right, as one of our tweeters pointed out, Rob.
Yes.
You know, why would you go to Arsenal with any hope of winning the Premier League? Certainly not this year.
I think there's certainly a feeling at Leicester City that it's an ambitious club and they want to taste success again. They're targeting European qualification this season. Craig Shakespeare, the manager, stated that, which is a bit refreshing because we got used to the old 40 points mantra for the last few years. So they are aiming high. I mean, they've had quite a decent transfer window, I believe, only losing Danny Drinkwater and getting quite a few players in to strengthen the core of the side. So I think Jamie thinks the club's ambitious, and why not go for more success? I mean, the club's never won the FA Cup.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a fantastic fitting sort of part of this story?
Yeah, well, but why didn't more clubs bid for him over the summer, Rob? Do you think he's now regarded as a spent force? I mean, his tally of goals like last season wasn't like the season before.
Well, I don't think they were creating the chances for him last season like they were the season before. Mahrez was off colour, and the whole team was, I thought, struggling to juggle the two competitions. But no, I think most clubs in the Premier League would take Jamie Vardy if they could, but he's on a big contract now. It would cost a lot of money to convince Leicester City to sell. I mean, Leicester City have dug their heels in over a number of players, most notably Riyad Mahrez. So it's not an easy thing just to go out and grab a player from another club.
No, it's not. And what will it be like this weekend when Chelsea come up to Leicester and they've got Danny Drinkwater and Kante as well? I mean, will the fans welcome them back, or will it be a bit edgy?
Well, when Kante came back last season, there were a few boos, but there were a very small minority, and the vast majority of them applauded him because they appreciated what a role he played in the incredible success they enjoyed. But Danny Drinkwater, obviously, whether the fact he put in an official transfer request to try and force the move through in the last week of the transfer window, whether that will affect a few. But I still think the majority will give him a decent reception when he comes, because they're heroes in this city because they won something that nobody ever expected them to win, and they've made Leicester City champions of England. So I think any member of that squad will always be warmly received back here.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt, they're legendary now and in folklore. What's the position with the manager there? What's Mr. Shakespeare's premise now? Is he safe? Is he on trial, or what's going on?
Yeah, well, it's obviously he needs a good start to the season. They've put their faith in him. He's obviously as a manager, he's got very little experience. He only had that little spell at the end of last season. So, in one sense, it's seen as a gamble, but he's got the trust and the loyalty of the players. He's worked with them all now for a number of years as the coach. So they decided to go with the continuity of that. But obviously he needs results. Yeah. They've got a particularly tough start to the season. And obviously we've already been to Arsenal and Man United. Now got Chelsea and Liverpool looming large as well. But so far the performances haven't been bad and they haven't got the points those performances have deserved.
This is talkSPORT. We are at the two mics. Coming up a little bit later on, we've got listography. A couple of people have sent in some suggestions. Actually, I put one to one side because I thought this might be quite good. I was going to ask you what you thought of it. And it is from Villa Rich. He said, what about the 3 most dangerous situations you found yourself in over the years?
We've done that.
Have we?
Don't you remember that you talked about being in the car with the men with guns following you and the woman? So that really covered that.
Was that listography or was that not one on the record podcast?
No, that was listography, definitely.
Sure?
Oh, yeah, I'm absolutely certain because I said that for me it was being in Northern Ireland.
Okay. Well, maybe you should pick one then.
Okay.
Have you got one to suggest?
I haven't got one to suggest.
You haven't got one to suggest?
Well, I haven't looked at the list of
what have you been doing?
Of possibilities.
I mean, you've got to do more than one thing at a time when you're on the show. You can't just talking until the time runs out.
I'm steering the clattering train and keeping it on the rails. Just remember that.
Everybody knows how well you steer the clattering train. I heard you do the show on your own.
Yeah, well, that's right. And guess what? The figures went up. And if you don't believe me, ask the programme manager of that particular station. The figures went up.
They went up?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
What did they do towards the end of the week?
No, they went up. Immediately you left, they went, and I was there solo.
You're going to keep this going, are you?
I'm going to tell you the truth, and that is the truth.
You don't know what the truth is.
I know what the truth is,
You've never known the truth.
Right, now then, give me some more suggestions for the listography.
Well, I'm not giving you any more. We want other people to do that.
Okay.
Tell them to send it to the Two Mics Twitter account.
Yes.
And hashtag it listography. Yeah. And we will pick a subject to talk about.
Or send it to @the2mics, okay?
That's what I just said.
Is it? I thought you said send it to Facebook, did you?
No, I said send it to @the2mics on Twitter.
All right, well, that's okay. Let's just get on with that then, shall we?
Yes, okay.
And not complicate things, right?
No, absolutely.
Okay. I'm going to find some here anyway, so don't worry about it, okay?
Okay.
The two mics, here we go. Let me see now. I'll tell you what I want to talk to you about, by the way.
Yeah, go on.
I want to talk to you about a bloke who got in his car in a car park and decided, apparently, that he wanted to freshen himself up.
Okay.
So he pulled out...
Well, that happens sometimes. If you're out for a long day...
I agree.
Sometimes you have to change your shirt or something to get to the next appointment.
I totally agree. And what he did was he got a deodorant spray out of his his overnight bag.
Yes.
Gave himself a quick spray. And then, unfortunately, without opening the windows, he lit a cigarette.
Oh, right.
And he blew the car up.
Really?
I mean, look, I'll show you the picture. Yeah. It looks like a car bomb. You know?
Goodness gracious me.
You see that?
Yeah.
And so all the windows came out, the bonnet was blown off, the doors were blown open.
This happened in Southend-on-Sea?
Yes, exactly,
Oh, goodness me.
I mean, that is something which you would hardly ever consider to be a potentially dangerous situation, isn't it?
I must admit, I mean, now that I've given up smoking,
yes.
I mean, it's a bit like when smoking started to get banned in places. You can't imagine where people used to be able to smoke.
No.
For example, on an aeroplane, seems like a really stupid idea. You used to be able to smoke on the tube, right?
I mean, smoking on an aeroplane is quite ridiculous, isn't it? When you think you were sitting next to somebody who didn't smoke.
Right.
And remember Mickey...
Well, it wasn't even that. It was if you were sitting at the back of the plane, and the back 4 rows, for example, were the smoking rows, and the person in the row immediately in front of you wasn't smoking.
Yes.
But they were being covered in smoke.
It's unbelievable. I remember Mickey told me once, Mickey Brennan, our old friend who we talk about a lot, the photographer, award-winning photographer whose prints are, becoming legendary, prints of the Beatles and of Cassius Clay and Muhammad Ali and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
And John Lennon, he took quite a few pictures of John Lennon, actually.
John Lennon, he did, yeah. But he was coming back from somewhere once in the States, so, God knows where it's from, in the days when smoking, he said to me, something strange, smoking was voluntary.
Yeah.
If the person sitting next to you didn't object,
right,
or the person behind you or something.
Oh, you mean in any row?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that, please be, considerate to your fellow.
Well, certainly all the. I mean, before they started pushing everybody to the back to smoke.
I mean,
every single seat had an ashtray.
That's right. Yeah. So he said to the bloke, I have a cigarette, and I said no. He said I'm not smoking myself, but obviously I don't really. Anyway, 16 cigarettes later, and about a dozen miniatures.
Yeah.
this bloke then laid into Mickey, you know, he's the most considerate man I've ever met, you know.
Really?
I said you could have one cigarette a night. He said, what are you moaning about, you know, and all this kind of stuff. So that caused terrible rows aboard aircraft. And people didn't want to be, I
remember coming back from Spain once with a load of other hacks, having been on a story down in Malaga about the Home Alone woman who left her kids home alone and went off on holiday.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And, disgusting woman.
We were travelling with the animal, Colin Adamson, right?
Oh, yeah, Adamson.
And we were all in the sort of, there was one of those, it was one of those planes which only had a first class with about sort of 12 seats in it, right?
Yeah.
So we took up most of them. There was about 3 or 4 others. And there was a couple of sort of businessmen and a woman in the other seats, which was terrible news for those who were drinking away. You know.
That's right.
One of the people, I think one of the women, objected to the fact that we were smoking, even though you were allowed to.
Yes.
So Adamson's answer to this was to put about 10 cigarettes in his mouth and light them all at the same time.
And then go smoking.
And then just blow the smoke everywhere. It was horrendous.
No, he went and stood close to her, you know, and started blowing in smoke. But he was a dreadful person. I think he's still alive.
He is.
He
lives down in the West Country. No, he's not a bad guy. He's just had pretty bad habits.
Well, he came into the Popinjay one night carrying a broken glass ashtray, right? And a bar mat, a bar towel, you know. I have no idea why he came in looking like this, but he'd been on an all-day bender because he spent most of his life working for the Evening Standard.
That's right, yeah.
And they usually finished about 2 or 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
So by the time you caught up with him at 8 o'clock, he was 5 hours into it.
Yeah.
But he then threatened Colin Bell because he said Colin Bell was a false Scotsman.
Oh, yeah.
They're both Scots, obviously, you know, the animal and we Colin Bell, you know.
Yeah.
And... he started, you know, we'll sort this out on the cobbles, Bell. You'll see what you're made of, you know. And took his jacket off, you know, and started licking his lips. And then, you know, very, very sort of theatrically, sort of rolling his sleeves up and things like cracking his knuckles.
It's all kind of pantomime for
Yeah,
guys,
but then nothing happened, you know. It's all,
No, absolutely ridiculous. Now, a couple of more tweets on the beer front. So Giftgaff says, and we talked about this the other day, £13.40 for the Rake in Borough Market sold a pint of Cloudwater's Northwest double IPA.
Absolutely.
For 3 times the average price of a beer.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I remember that came out the other day.
Yes.
And here's one from Spencer. He says, you were able to smoke in the Royal Mail sorting office. Fags were left resting over the mail bags. Well, the other place that I was going to say, which was ridiculous, was in the cinemas. You could smoke in a cinema.
You could, yeah.
I once set fire to a woman's hair.
Right.
Because she was sitting in front of me, but it was dark, right?
Doesn't surprise me at all.
The ashtrays used to be between the seats.
That's right, yeah.
And I went to stub the cigarette out, but her hair was kind of cascading over the back of the seat.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And it made that horrible crunchy noise that hair makes when you set it on fire.
Yeah.
And you know, I had to like smack the head and everything to get the hair on fire out.
And actually, I still object these days. If the configuration of a pub is that there's one entrance and it's quite narrow, then you have to walk through a cloud of smoke to get in and out of the pub because these bums come out and stand outside the front and
you've
just
got to
smoke.
stop going to Wetherspoons. I keep telling you.
No, these are not Wetherspoons pubs. There's nothing wrong with Wetherspoons anyway. I don't know why you have a go at them. You know, 90% of the people in this country use them. So I don't know what's wrong with you.
I'm just telling you to stop going to them all the time.
I don't go to them all the time. I go to them when I feel like going to them, you know, and it's convenient. And that really gets my goat because, and also people who stand outside places of employment.
Yes.
Particularly if they are civil servants, I do not wish to be killed by passive smoking by some guy...
Well, I think you can take it a bit far if you're outside.
By some guy who is working in an office which is provided by my taxes, OK?
Yes.
He then goes outside for his regular cigarette break every 20 minutes, therefore not applying himself to his job, despite the fact that he's working for the state.
Now you're getting ridiculous.
And I fund the state, OK?
Well, you're not single-handedly funding it.
And then
you're still paying back all that money that we funded for your healthcare.
And then you're walking through clouds of well, if it only make my healthcare more necessary if I have to walk through these clouds of smoke in and out of buildings, wouldn't it? Eh?
Well, maybe you shouldn't have been smoking so much when you were younger. This is the Two Mics on talkSPORT with Wix. Wix have lowered the price on Blue Circle General Purpose Cement. Get 25 kilograms for just $3.79 each when you buy 3 or more. Now, there's a song I've never heard before.
Right.
But it's by the Kinks.
Yep.
Ducks on the wall.
Do you know, I've never heard that. And I'm a big Kinks fan, yeah. I like Kinks, Waterloo Sunset.
Yeah.
Thank you for the days.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Amazing, that. Hello, LA Lola, of course, was the other one.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to talk to Pat Butler, who's the Emeritus Professor at Birmingham University. It was an amazing story, which we spotted yesterday, actually, about a duck which flies over the Himalayas.
That's right.
At around 22,000 feet.
Unbelievable.
Now, since that story was published, it seems that there might have been some suggestion that perhaps this is an unusual duck rather than an entire breed of ducks that can do this.
Absolutely. And let's give them some background to this. I, of course, support a duck conservancy down in Surrey, down in Stockbroker Belt, Surrey, and I'm often out feeding the ducks early. You are always berating me and saying, I don't know why you look after these ducks, they can't fly. I said ducks do fly.
Well,
they
I also
often...
always berate you for giving them white bread, which you're not
Well,
supposed
we'll
to
find
do.
out whether that's a crime or not. But, I mean, ducks do fly around different ponds because I sometimes see the same ducks at several different ponds in Surrey.
I've never said that they don't fly.
So now to find out that a duck can actually hit 22,000 feet, which is a sort of, aircraft liner type height, is a revelation indeed.
Well, it certainly is. Apparently, scientists from the University of Essex used satellite tracking to find what these Himalayan ducks were doing. But let's talk to the professor to find out. Professor Butler, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you too.
Thank you very much. Now, is this story true? I suppose the first question I've got to ask you.
Oh well, you don't doubt the scientific evidence. Yes, these investigators, they use satellite tracking technology to determine the altitude at which these birds were flying, from their breeding grounds to their wintering grounds and back again. And yes, they recorded these sorts of altitudes. And they're not unusual among birds because we've recorded similar altitudes with bar-headed geese.
Really?
It's incredible. Doc, isn't he... sorry, Prof, I mean. You're not a doctor, you're a professor. Prof, yeah. What I was going to say is, I just don't understand how birds who've got small lungs can actually take in oxygen at 22,000 feet. If a man stepped out of an aeroplane at that height, he would...
He'd fall to the ground.
A, he would fall, but B, he would be incredibly short of oxygen, wouldn't he?
He would indeed, and human beings, generally speaking, apart from those that live on the Tibetan plateau and in the Andes, I mean, most human beings live at or around sea level in comparison. And yes, we do suffer when we go to high altitudes. That's why airplanes are pressurised to increase the amount of oxygen. But these birds, well, they've evolved. Birds in general have tolerance to low oxygen, more tolerance than mammals.
Right.
And these particular birds were certainly the bar-headed geese, and I'd be surprised if the ruddy shell duck is not the same.
Right.
I mean, they might have relatively small lungs, but the air passes through the lungs into air sacs.
Right.
So the amount of air they take in per breath is relatively large.
Right.
So they do ventilate their respiratory system, obviously adequately, to get the amount of oxygen they need.
And what about why they fly so high? I mean, obviously it's the Himalayas, so you'd have to fly over mountains and stuff like that.
What are they doing there?
But I mean, I suppose I'm asking, is it more efficient? Because you know how planes, if you get a tailwind, you don't have to use so much fuel. Can they fly using the tailwind that gets them somewhere quicker?
Well, there is evidence that certainly the bar-headed goose does take advantage of wind speed and wind direction. I don't think there is evidence from a number of bird species that they do take advantage of tailwinds, and they'd be silly not to, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
If provided the tailwinds are going in the direction they want to go.
Yeah, exactly. But why are the birds there? Where are they flying from and to? I mean, do they just suddenly get up one day and say, let's go and fly over Mount Everest?
Well, the Himalayan ducks, aren't they?
No, it's part of a migration, an annual migration that a lot of animals, particularly birds, do. I mean, they go to breeding grounds. Well, in the northern hemisphere, they go to breeding grounds in the summer, and then they come to wintering grounds in the winter.
Right.
And the breeding grounds tend to be further north in the northern hemisphere, and the wintering grounds tend to be further south.
Right. Yeah.
And so this is something they've done for, probably millions of years. I don't know how long they've been, and it's something innate in their behaviour.
Yes.
And of course the Himalayas, I mean, they rose relatively recently. So they were a barrier to their movement between Tibet north of the Himalayas and India or wherever south of the Himalayas.
Yeah.
So if they want to continue with that migration route, be they geese or ducks, I mean, they have to cross the Himalayas.
So they've been around long enough to remember when there were no Himalayas. They were flying in that direction and there's no mountain, but now there is.
Possibly. That's possibly.
That's kind of mind-boggling, that, isn't it?
It is a bit mind-boggling, It's like flying over the Grand Canyon and thinking somebody's filled it in.
There never used to be anything here.
Exactly.
No,
yeah.
exactly
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as a scientific discovery, Professor, because obviously, scientific discoveries don't happen as much now as they used to. This is quite a big deal, right?
Well, it was originally thought, believe it or not, that bar-headed geese, and they've become what's known as an iconic species. It was originally thought they actually flew over the summit of Mount Everest, where the oxygen level is about a third that at sea level.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, using this modern technology, it's been demonstrated that they, and in fact the ruddy-shelled duck, as you might expect, I mean, they cross the Himalayas along valley floors. I mean, they keep relatively close to the ground, and they keep as low as possible. I mean, they go through valleys rather than over the top of the peaks, which, again, when you think about it, is common sense.
If you can find them.
Well, they're quite high, so they can see them, And these valleys, I mean, even then, the altitude is over 5,000 metres.
I know.
Which is equivalent to about half of an atmospheric pressure, half as much oxygen is available to them.
I totally agree. Now, when they fly these great distances, how do they eat? And then that leads me to the next question, because I'm a member of a duck conservancy. I don't have any problem feeding my ducks with bread,
I bet they couldn't fly that high if they ate bread.
Yeah, but I mean...
But everybody says you shouldn't do that.
Yeah, I keep getting all these messages from people saying, you're cruel to feed ducks with white bread. I mean, so I feed them brown bread sometimes. Am I doing the right thing?
Well, most of these birds are grazers. The geese and the ducks. And so the valleys, the valley floors are probably quite lush. I mean, you've probably seen films of the Himalayas. Along these valleys. I mean, you get human populations along them as well.
Exactly.
And so they land. So they land periodically. These geese to feed.
Yeah, sure.
I mean they don't fly non-stop. The complete distance. They do stop. They do stop to feed, and as we would say, to take a breather, I guess.
Sure. And have you ever heard of a bird falling out of the sky at these sort of heights, Prof? Because they actually just freeze to death.
Because they freeze.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of it. Well, I mean, we have no definitive evidence that these birds actually go to altitudes much higher than 7,000 metres. And even then, they're probably taken there by updrafts of wind, of air. And paragliders, I mean, know what this is like. You get caught in an upcurrent, and you're taken up.
You're sure?
So 7,000 metres, and the guy came down again. I mean, it was okay. Temperature is a problem. I mean, it gets well below zero. I mean, minus 30, minus 40. And they're well insulated, of course. But the interesting thing is that they're breathing in this very cold air, which has to be heated up before it gets to any part of the body that's important.
The vital organs.
When no part of the body freezes, so they warm it up very quickly as it passes in over the nostril, in through the nostrils, over. Well, what are called turbinate bones, they're highly vascularised, and the heat is transferred to the incoming air.
Sure.
And,
that's far too complicated for us to understand, I'm afraid. Professor Pat Butler, though, thank you very much
Prof,
indeed.
thank you very much indeed.
He is the emeritus professor at Birmingham University, telling us about these amazing Himalayan ducks.
Yeah.
He didn't really tell you whether you could give them bread or not.
No, he didn't actually, but he did sort of confirm a theory that I've held for many, many years and imparted to our millions of listeners some time ago, and that is that you can... these birds can drop out of the sky after freezing to death.
He didn't say that.
And there have been instances of people being killed by being hit on the head by a frozen duck.
No, he didn't say that.
Suddenly plummets to earth.
No, he did not say that.
No, he didn't dismiss it. He said they're flying.
No part of the body freezes.
He said they fly through temperatures of minus 30 or 40 degrees.
But no part of the body
very
freezes.
Cold. No, he didn't say that.
He did say that.
No.
You'll have to listen to it again. Anyway, we're out of time as usual. You've been over talking. This is talkSPORT.
First I was afraid, I was petrified. Then I spent so many nights thinking how you did me wrong. And I grew strong. And I learned how to get along. And so you're back from outer space. I just walked in to find you here with that sad look upon your face. I should have changed that stupid lock. I should have made you leave your key. If I'd have known for just 1 second you'd be back to bother me. Go on now, go.
We are the two mics. This is Talk Sport. This could be your theme song, I suppose, right?
What's that?
We'll survive.
I will survive.
You have survived.
I'm trying to survive.
I mean, you know, you should have been. You should have been under the cost of the Grim Reaper, I suppose, back in the early part of this century.
Only 1/3 of my heart works. Yeah, absolutely.
Did you say it was her birthday as well, Gloria?
It is
Gaynor?
her birthday. She's 68. How
Right,
about
okay.
that?
Not bad.
Yeah, but I mean, you can't imagine Gloria Gaynor being 68. I was on the Birmingham Mail when that record first came out. And it was absolute classic, disco classic, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Do you remember the video on Top of the Pops for it?
I don't really, actually, no.
Well, first of all, there was Gloria Gaynor singing it,
Yeah.
very, beautiful-looking Gloria Gaynor giving a delivery in a white dress and all that. But then they flashed to a roller skating rink, and a little girl on a roller skating rink, dressed like a ballerina, was rolling, was skating around on a roller skates.
Really?
Yeah, it was to bring like sort of, like dance to it. You know what I mean? That sort of thing.
No, indeed.
But anyway, it's very
now,
legendary.
I've got a couple of tweets here for you.
Okay.
Martin says, amusing that Porky's pretending he's on the intellectual par with yet another professor.
Yes, that's right,
AJ says, well, that's 10 minutes of my life I won't get back.
Yes.
Hashtag boring duck madness, but it's a great show. And Dazza says, until I got hit by a duck, says Porky, I couldn't work out where it came from until I saw an Iceland lorry in my mirror.
Yes,
so I'm not sure anybody's quite believing this duck falls from
Well,
sky
it
business.
has happened, believe me.
But I'll tell you something else that's happened, which is going to shock you to your very core.
Go on.
Because you know how we talked in the first hour of the show about new stadiums and how Everton are preparing to build this super new stadium, fantastic new stadium. Now,
Indeed.
part of my understanding of the building of the stadium was that there was going to be some support coming because it was going to be part of a Commonwealth Games scenario in Liverpool, right?
Yeah.
Well, Liverpool have just lost the bid to get the Commonwealth Games in 2022.
Well, they've lost the bid to be England's representative in it.
It's going to be Birmingham has been chosen
Yes.
instead. So that means, presumably, that the funding that would have come to Everton to build the stadium from the Commonwealth Games bid, had it been won, is not now going to come.
Well, I don't think there was any funding due to Everton as part of it. I think Everton, by announcing their plans for the new stadium, were included in the overall package that Liverpool, the city, presented as a potential location.
They also put together a floating pool, apparently, built on the water near Albert Dock.
Yeah, that's right.
Which would have been a swimming pool.
What do you mean by that, sorry?
Well, a floating pool, look, there's a picture of it. There's a floating pool.
Oh, I see. That would have been the swimming centre.
Part of
yes,
the Commonwealth Games.
That's very forward-looking, isn't it?
Well, it is, but now it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen, I'm afraid. No, so they've lost
you
out.
wouldn't want people swimming in the Mersey, would you? Any more than you'd want swimming in the Thames.
Well, they wouldn't swim in the Mersey, would they? Obviously, they'll build a pool within it. But I think
saying.
that's a very revolutionary idea. That bid, incidentally, was fronted up by Brian Barwick, my old pal.
Oh, was it? The guy from the FA?
Well, I mean, what a legendary career Brian had. He was chief executive of the Football Association.
Yes.
But before that, he was head of sport at both ITV and BBC.
Yes.
And he was actually the man responsible for taking Des Lynam from the BBC to ITV.
Oh, right.
Do you remember?
That was another one of those transfers that never quite worked, did it?
I think the transfer was reversed, wasn't it, eventually?
Yeah, I think so.
I think Des went back to the... But I mean, it was a real coup. I remember Brian telling me, walking along the beach with Des Lynam, trying to convince him to come over to the other side.
Yes.
And the problem was, that was when ITV got the highlights for, the day's games. So they didn't call it Match of the Day, obviously, because that was the BBC one. No. They called it something else. But the problem was, what killed it was the advertising breaks. And of course,
that's the problem that happens to every show that gets moved from, say, BBC to a commercial outfit. Is that people get sort of turned off by all the breaks.
Yeah, and the thing is, of course, we are huge supporters of commercial breaks and advertising in programmes because that's the business we're in.
And also that's the way, proper companies have to operate.
Of course they do. I mean, we don't get free money.
We could just go out to everybody in the street and say, would you mind giving me 100 quid, please? So I can run a radio station.
Yeah, can I have 145 quid, please? Yeah. And, don't you have a say in what we spend it, and I'll spend it on what I want to spend it.
Exactly.
I want to make a programme about...
Maybe we should do a kind of two mics licence.
Yeah, that's right.
A licence fee.
Yeah, that's
everybody just gives us 145 quid.
That's right. And anybody...
We'll give you loads of content.
Anybody doesn't give us 145
Goes to prison.
Quid. No, we'll be banned from listening to us, and we'll send the boys round.
No, you go to jail.
Send the boys round,
No, we can't do that.
No.
Now, here's the thing, right? Now, you're saying that wasn't going to be any money coming towards Everton, but I'd be astonished if that's not true, because, according to what I'm reading here, the cost of hosting the event is an estimated 500 to 680 million, right?
Yes.
75% of which comes from the Treasury.
Yes.
25% of which is coming from Birmingham City Council.
Yeah.
So this is a sporting event which is being put together by Birmingham as a city, but basically the taxpayers are paying for it.
How much money again, sorry?
Between 500 and 680 million.
And the percentage of money is coming from?
75% from the Treasury.
Right, okay.
25% from the local council.
Yeah, but I'm not sure any of that would have been used to build Everton Stadium.
I'm sure that Everton, if they were smart, a bit like West Ham, would have somehow managed to finagle a bit of money their way.
Okay.
So now they won't.
It sounds like you may be right. I mean, when there's that amount of public money involved, and Everton would have been one of the main stadia involved, you have to say there was a big incentive there for people to help them build the stadium.
They would have had to come up with some of it, I think. And it says here, for example, I mean, like Manchester City Stadium was originally built for the Commonwealth Games, wasn't it? It was East Manchester Stadium.
Yes.
Now, it says here this will be the biggest sum to be spent on staging a sports event in England since the Olympics in 2012. Do you know how much was spent on that?
Go on.
8.9 billion.
Yeah, I know.
Billion.
Yeah, but it started off with a budget of 4 billion. That's the usual. And in any project like this, you double it and you're about there, aren't you?
Now, this expenditure will not be without controversy given Birmingham's recent bin workers' strike dispute.
Yeah, that's right,
because the council can't even run the bins. Never mind run the Commonwealth Games.
I'm sure the bin workers, who are presumably in dispute on their pay rates, will be delighted to find out that so much is now being spent on trying to host or trying to win the bid. Well, and remember, by the way, the bid itself can cost hundreds of millions of pounds.
But we're always being told how we don't have any money in this country. I don't know where we're going to find all this stuff.
The bid itself can be worth can cost hundreds of millions of pounds, and they might not even get it in the end.
I know.
Right,
Shocking.
now then, please, could I say, on Monday's show, I talked about people using mobility scooters, and I would like to apologise unreservedly if any of my comments were misunderstood or upset anybody who was listening. That was certainly not my intention, and I should stress that neither I nor talkSPORT, of course, tolerate or condone any form of discrimination against disabled people, and we never will.
This is talkSPORT.
Righto, folks, you are listening, of course, to the Two Mics. We're on talkSPORT. We are with Wicks. Now, Wicks have lowered the price on Blue Circle General Purpose Cement. Get 25 kilograms for just £3.79 each when you buy 3 or more.
Absolutely right. Now, Jason has sent in a suggestion for you on that plan of doing a sort of a Two Mics licence fee type scenario, where he says, I'll give Porky 145 quid to shut up.
Oh, that's very nice.
That's nice, isn't it?
That's very nice, isn't it? Yeah.
That's the sort of thing that you engender from people.
I'll tell you what, though, if enough people want me to shut up and send me £145, say a million of you,
you can see.
I will shut up.
You can see an opportunity.
I can't see a real opportunity.
See, I don't think you could. I think if we had to do something for charity where you basically weren't allowed to speak, for, say, for example, even if it was something as little as 4 hours, but you had to be in company, you couldn't just like hide away.
Right.
I don't think you could do it.
You mean people would be baiting me to talk all the time?
Say, for example, we'd have you sitting here, and there'd be other people in the studio, but you wouldn't be allowed to speak. I don't think you could do it.
And other people start making comments about Everton and comments about my career.
Or about you and your books and,
the fact that you've always lied about your heart and all this kind of stuff.
All that kind of thing.
Which, of course, is not true.
Porky baiting.
I mean, I've never lied about my heart. That's what's not true. You know what I mean?
Now, speaking of what's not true, have we yet got anything inspiring for a listography?
Yes, we've got a really novel one. It's come from a lady called Natalie Upton. Thank you very much indeed.
Okay.
And it is, tell us, please, each of you, the Two Mics, about your favourite ever 3 pairs of shoes.
3 pairs of shoes?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Which I think is great.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, okay. That's good.
I can think of 1 pair straight off the top. I don't know about the second pair.
Yeah, okay.
How about this from Alan? Well done for the stuff on ducks, he says. Birds need friends, too many idiots killing them for fun.
Yes.
Stop the annual migrating bird slaughter.
Yeah, well,
I'm not sure that people might kill migrating birds, do they?
Well, what are grouse? They're not migrating birds,
they're not migrating.
But grouse are bred to be shot,
a lot of them,
aren't they?
yeah, well, they are, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
They're kind of farmed, effectively.
The guy who is a big supporter of field sports, which is what grouse shooting is classified as, is Serene Botham, of course. And he's had a big run-in with a lot of people. He's very vocal about it. He's very strong in his support of it, and he's very principled about it all. And of course, it does really divide opinion, doesn't it? You know what I mean?
You do have a way with words.
Well, to shoot them. I mean, you shoot them.
Cut down in a hail of bullets.
Well, do you know what I found odd the other day? Because I live down in Stockbroker Belt, Surrey, of course. I do mix
the world's most expensive county.
Yeah, that's right.
According
world's
to
most
you.
expensive beer county. Well, Well, actually, that pub, the very pub where we hosted the race night recently, and you came along.
That was a nice pub. I like that.
Very nice pub.
Very
yeah,
nice.
Exactly. Well,
have you been back there since?
Yeah, I go. My family use it, so I go down and see them sometimes on a Sunday and that sort of stuff.
How are the staff there?
The staff are great. They're brilliant people.
You seem to be getting on quite well with them.
I think they're very good. And it's called the Well House, and it's very traditional.
That used to be the name of my house in Wiltshire that flooded all the time.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Well, the Well House. This should have been a clue, shouldn't it?
This one doesn't. Yeah, it should have been. This one doesn't flood, but it has got a well in the back. And
I'll tell you what it doesn't have is any kind of signal, because I was trying to be on the phone.
Yeah, that's right.
Night,
yeah, and that was the night we got involved in the beef row.
The beef row, yeah. I'm always in a row. I never used to get anywhere near as many rows before. But now that I work with you, I'm in rows all the time.
I think you're a bit provocative. But anyway, point my story is...
what is the point of the story?
There's people down there who are, sort of the country and that kind of stuff. So we were talking about this grouse shooting story and all that. And I said, look, I don't get it. I said, because the glorious 12th and all that, what happens is the grouse are shot on the moors of Yorkshire, I think, or somewhere in the north, because I think grouse shooting doesn't take place in the south, does it? It's just in the north.
Well, no, it happens everywhere.
No, it just happens in the north.
No, it doesn't only happen in the north
or
Scotland.
Yeah,
there used to be a pheasant shoot in where I live in Sussex.
Well, pheasants aren't grouse, are they?
No, they're not, but they could have grouse. No, but they had grouse as well.
All right, well, mostly it's in the north. So what they do is... No, they shoot these grouse, or these... I was going to say peasants then. No, the pheasants. They shoot the pheasants, yeah. And then they shoot them on the moors of sort of Yorkshire and Durham and all that.
Scotland as well.
And Scotland, that's right.
Scotland's where it mostly goes on.
And they fly them down to London, right, on a little aeroplane, and then they present them to the first diner on the glorious 12th at the Savoy Hotel.
And then they have to pick the shot out of it.
Well, this is the very point I'm saying. I'm saying to this pal in the pub there, the Well House, I'm saying, I can't imagine why people would want to suddenly get stuck into meat that has just been brought to the table after being, shot with a shotgun on a moor.
Don't they have to hang it before they cook it, though?
Well, I don't know that, but he said to me, he said, no.
Hang it.
He said to me, no. He said, that's part of the fun. I said, what is? He said, a few broken teeth. Well, I mean, crikey, I wouldn't eat anything that I knew.
Who told you that?
This guy, this acquaintance.
Well, he's obviously mad.
And I said, broken teeth. He said, oh, yeah. He said, you start messing around taking all the shot out. He said, it loses its flavour and all that.
The guy he was kind of clearly having you on.
Well, he probably had too much to drink.
Because, apart from anything else, one of the things that you don't do, for example, when they used to shoot the pheasants, they would hang them up in the barn.
Right.
So because you've got to hang them for at least a week.
Why?
Because you have to let all the blood move around in the body and sort of coagulate, basically.
Yeah.
Because you can't. It's not the kind of meat you can eat straight away.
Yeah, well, how come they send it straight to the table?
I don't think they do.
To London's top hotels.
I don't think
They do. That's why it's the glorious 12th.
Well, they must have shot it before then.
No, you can't. You can't shoot until the glorious 12th. That's the whole idea.
Well, maybe somebody else can explain it to us.
Yeah, maybe they can.
But I'm pretty certain that you cannot shoot a grouse, put it on a plane, and have somebody eating it the same day.
You can. Without a shadow of a doubt, you can. But did you ever go on the Beaujolais run?
No.
That was the same thing.
Well, I went across to the wine bar when the Beaujolais Day run was on.
No, I went on the Beaujolais run. You start in the south of France.
Yeah.
And
when did you do that then?
Oh, I don't know. One year at the Express,
sure?
I went as executive editor
to
organise it. And what happens is the grape crop comes in at that particular time of the year for the Beaujolais bottling, okay?
Yes.
And you then...
it's November, isn't it?
November, that's right. So you get into all these wineries.
Usually the 15th, I think.
Is it the 15th?
Usually, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you get in these wineries in somewhere like, the Loire Valley or somewhere like that. You know what I mean?
Isn't it Beaujolais you're in?
Well, Beaujolais is just the name of the wine.
No, that's the name of the place where the wine comes from.
Well, that is in the Loire Valley, isn't it?
No.
Why not?
No, because it's another part of France altogether.
Is it? You sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
Okay, so, all right, well, in the Beaujolais Valley.
You sure you went there? You're just making it up as you go along now.
No. So,
well, you still send Ross Benson, didn't you?
Well, I think so, yeah, when Ross was in America or whatever. So you go to the Beaujolais Valley then, okay?
Yeah, the Beaujolais Valley,
and they get these grapes and they start sort of crushing them all up. And then they make a bottle. And then the whole idea is to, get into sort of some vintage car and drive, for the coast, for Calais.
Well, don't you go both ways?
No. You fly down. You fly down.
I thought the old idea was that you drive down, you drive back.
No. I think some of the purists might have done that. I just flew one way. And then,
Purists?
Yeah, and then got
people who were doing the run.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And then
only you would fly down. You're not supposed to. You're supposed to drive down,
and then you get into...
pick up the wine and drive back.
And you get into the car, the vintage car, and you sit in the back and you just...
So what vintage car did you have?
Oh, some sort of, like, Bentley. I think it was a Bentley. Yeah, it was a Bentley, yeah. So you get in the back of this vintage Bentley.
I don't believe a word of this story.
You do. And then all that happens is that the guy who's, acting as the butler just keeps giving you glasses of Beaujolais, like loads of them, until you get to the coast.
Right.
And then
until you pass out.
Until you pass out, yeah, that's get on the coast. And then you drive across, on a ferry, obviously, and then you get to somewhere like Folkestone, and then you drive up to London, and then you burst into... the designated restaurant in Fleet Street with all the bottles of Beaujolais, and a huge sort of feast takes place. You know what I mean? It's great fun. I mean, it's really great.
Yeah.
It's
a shame you don't remember any of it.
Well, it's the sort of thing that you wouldn't remember all that well, considering that the thing is, by the time you got to the great feast, it was a toss-up as to between whether you were more intoxicated having done the 16-hour run from the south of France or wherever Beaujolais is, or some mid-France somewhere.
Burgundy, actually.
Burgundy, that's right. Or the guys had been preparing too hard for the feast up in London.
I see. OK. Well, thanks for telling us about that.
Well, it was great fun.
I was going to ask you about Andy Murray then, but never mind. We haven't got time now. We'll have to do that later. Because there are fears that Andy Murray might not be back, as I told you yesterday.
Well, I think that's a bit alarmist.
Well, I don't think it is. We've got listography coming up next, though. This is talkSPORT.
Crocodile shoes, crocodile shoes, crocodile shoes, crocodile shoes.
This is talkSPORT. We are the two mics, and you might think that listography has run out of shoe space, if you like. But this is quite an interesting one. There's three favourite pairs of shoes.
That's right. Absolutely.
Do you want to kick it off?
Yes, I will kick it off, because actually one of mine, in fact a very prominent one, is crocodile.
Crocodile shoes?
Yeah, well, let me tell you, remember the Waco siege?
I do remember the Waco siege.
I went down there, and of course it was a massive story, Inferno and all that, but I was down there for a few days before it all happened. And I went with our ex-colleague Alan Hall to Austin.
Oh, yeah.
Now, ostensibly, he wanted to go because he had an abiding interest in law and order, and he wanted to go to the Texas Rangers Museum.
Oh, yeah.
And we did go to the Texas Rangers Museum.
And that's in Austin?
That's in Austin, or on the road to Austin. Yeah. But at the same time, because we were in Austin, and Waco, where the siege took place, was a real backward town. I mean, it was...
There wasn't much to it, was there?
Texas Panhandle. Yeah. I mean, it was, it was nothing there, really, to be honest. But we suddenly found in Austin, it was quite a cultural centre, and there was one road,
Well, Austin's meant to be a very arty kind of place,
it certainly is. There was one street there, amazing shops.
Yeah.
And one of the shops sold only cowboy clothing and cowboy artefacts, really. Hats, Stetsons, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But crocodile and boots and belts. Yeah. So I bought a pair of crocodile boots, which I've still got, but I can't get into.
Really? Why? What, they're too small?
I don't know. Something's happened. The shape of my foot's changed or something. I can't seem to get into them.
They're quite narrow anyway, aren't they?
They're quite narrow, and you have to sort of pull them on and all that. And a matching belt.
Yes.
And they were fine when you lived and worked in Texas or even in New York.
Yeah.
But you look ridiculous wearing them around London.
Walking around Waterloo Station.
Your crocodile boots.
Yes. Yes, I think people would probably make fun of you.
And they've got high Cuban heels as well.
Yes.
So I would be accused of trying to heighten myself, which of course I don't.
You might have the animal rights lot after you.
You might as well have you might have the animal rights lot. So your favourite first pair?
How much do you pay for them though? That's the main question.
$300.
$300.
I think so. Yeah,
they're quite expensive. Aren't they?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to start in sort of in order of time because my first sort of pair of shoes that I can remember being very pleased with was when I was a kid, and everybody at Wimbledon used to wear Dunlop green flash sort of trainers. Which were what you wore for playing tennis.
Yes, that's right.
And I managed to finally get my first pair of Dunlop green flash.
Right.
I think when I was about 13.
Okay.
When I used to play a bit of tennis. And I remember thinking that I'd absolutely made it because these were the trendiest and best.
Did you pay for them or did your mum and dad buy them for you?
I think they bought them for me.
For your birthday or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Right, okay.
Or maybe even a Christmas or something.
But it put you then on par with all the smartest kids in town.
It put me on a par with all the smartest tennis players in town.
Right, okay.
And it was, because...
Did you not wear them off the court?
No, I don't think I ever did, because you didn't really do that in those days. You didn't wear
the only
trainers.
ones that you did were the Adidas trainers, right from the start.
This was kind of before Adidas became a big thing, though.
Okay.
I mean, I remember having an Adidas hold-all that I used to wear.
But thought nothing of the 3 white stripes.
But didn't have Adidas shoes, and I didn't have, and I think my football boots were Gola or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have Adidas football boots.
Yeah, I'd have got a pair of Gola boots, I'm sure.
So, the green Dunlop Green Flash.
Excellent.
Very cool.
Okay, well, my second pair, right, and they were ridiculous shoes, but it was during my sort of disco phase, right?
Disco phase.
So I suppose I was
Did you
about...
have a white suit?
No, I didn't have a white suit. No, I suppose I was about 19.
Yeah.
And they were called stacked shoes, right?
Oh, I know, like platform shoes.
They were the sort of things that Elton John enlarged and enunciated on that Pinball Wizard cover of his. You know what I mean? Huge stacked shoes. But actually, you bought these in shops, and they had a huge block heel, which I think was about 4 inches. Yeah. And then the sole itself was about 2 or 3 inches deep.
Platform shoes.
Yeah,
I used to go to a place in Kensington called Shelley's that sold them.
Yeah.
Kensington Church Street.
And do you know what? I loved them. I don't know why, but it was fascinating. I used to wear really wide...
Very wide flares.
Exactly. Yeah. Trousers, which would drop over your platform shoes.
Right.
So you were, the bee's knees if you had the smartest sort of wide flared trousers.
Did you have any trouble walking in them?
No, I didn't actually. Funny enough, I didn't. And your platform shoes and a nice smart shirt, and you're going off to the disco and all that kind of stuff. The only problem with them was that they weren't high quality because they were being sold in volume, probably made in somewhere like Taiwan. And so usually after about 3 or 4 months, the bridge between the huge block heel and the platform itself, that the shoe was built on, only had a very thin bridge between the two.
Yes.
And that always snapped after about 3 months.
Yes, I bet it did.
And all of a sudden, I'm giving it, John Travolta wasn't around in those days.
I don't want to hear any more.
I'm giving it a bit of Disco King on the dance floor, and the bridge in the shoe would snap, and all of a sudden,
fall over.
The back of your shoe and the front of your shoe were not joined together.
Dear God.
Yeah.
Now, before we go on, there's been a wicket in the cricket.
Right.
Let's go back to John Norman at Lord's. John.
22 for 2, Windies, who've only been back out for 9 minutes, but Kyle Hope has gone for a duck. A string of poor scores will put pressure on him when he comes out in second dig. It's wicket number 499 for Jimmy Anderson. The outswinger this time with the batsman, I think, trying to get his bat out the way of the ball, but he ended up chasing it, and Johnny Bairstow taking a good catch, diving across first slip. I think the ball would have died on Alistair Cook. So the right decision by Bairstow, who's taken his second catch of the morning, and Anderson with 2 wickets, and the Windies 22 for 2.
Thanks very much, John. Matthew's being a bit of a pedant here. He says, Porky, boots are not shoes.
Well,
I mean, they're footwear, aren't they?
Footwear, absolutely.
And I'm also going to back that up because I've got a pair of boots to tell you about.
Okay.
When I first came back to the UK back in the early 90s, and I got told I was going to go off to Bosnia.
Right.
I thought, I better get... And somebody actually said to me, you better get some gear.
Yeah.
Because you can't obviously walk around with ordinary shoes
of course not.
and a suit and all that.
Can't do a marler, so to speak.
No, exactly. So I didn't want to go out in a white suit like Martin Bell, because that was already being done.
Yes.
So I went to Harrods, and because I picked a load of money out of the Express petty cash, advanced expenses drawer, and went straight to Harrods, bought myself a Timberland sort of anorak, which was very, very nice.
Yes.
A bunch of pairs of trousers and a pair of beautiful leather Timberland boots.
Right, okay.
Which were about 120 quid then. This was about 1993.
Yeah, sure.
A lot of money. But they were incredibly comfortable and very, very hard wearing. And I wore them throughout that period. But also, do you know how long they lasted? It wasn't until about 2 years ago that finally I was actually in the garden down in Sussex, and the sole kind of just came away from the shoe.
Okay.
So I'd had them from 1992 to about 2016.
Yeah.
So that's a good 25 years.
That's an awful long time for a pair of shoes.
Yeah. And especially for a pair of boots that I'd walked around in, and they incredibly had this very sort of wide lip with sort of very soft leather around the top. Beautiful shoes.
Yeah,
beautiful.
Yeah, fantastic footwear. And my third pair, was when I was about 14. I got my first proper suit.
Yes.
Which I bought off the peg. And I wanted a pair of shoes to go with it. Now, I don't know what was in my head, but the suit was a sort of fawn-coloured suit.
Fawn?
Yeah, sort of fawn-coloured suit.
That doesn't sound good.
No, sort of, I can't quite remember what colour it was, but I bought...
Sort of beige, almost.
Yeah, sort of beige, that's right. But anyway, the point is, I bought a pair of beige suede shoes.
Oh, yeah.
Which were...
like hush puppies?
No, they weren't. No, they were lace-ups. and they went quite high up your ankle. You see what I mean?
Oh, like desert boots.
Like desert boots, but they weren't desert boots. They were shoes.
Okay.
So they had a hard plastic black sole.
Yeah.
And then the shoe was built on top of them. But I loved them, and I brushed them every night.
Did you?
The beautiful shoes.
What did you brush them with?
Like a
steel brush.
No, not a steel brush, you idiot. With a suede brush, which is a soft brush.
You call me an idiot.
Yeah, and
harsh.
Well, you don't brush suede with a steel brush, do you?
You can do.
And no, you can't.
Why
Anybody who
not?
does that ruins his shoes. And I loved those shoes for years.
Where did you get them from?
Got them from...
I mean, was it a reputable shoe shop?
It would be like somewhere like Clark's or something like that in those days. Clark's shoes.
Startright.
Eh?
Startright.
I don't know what that is.
Startright was a shoe brand.
Well, you used to measure your foot as a kid.
No, it was a shoe brand.
Oh, was it? Oh, right. No, these were Clark's, I think, or Timpson's or something like that. And I loved the shoes. And what I did was, of course, I was growing up and my feet were getting bigger, but I didn't want them to get too big for my shoes. So I cut a couple of spaces in the shoe to try and elongate them.
What?
But they got torn.
What do you mean?
Well, I thought if by putting a few slashes in them, a bit... I was way ahead of my time. You know the way people slash jeans these days?
Yeah, but you don't slash your
shoes.
shoes.
I slashed my shoes, and I thought...
didn't your feet get wet when it rained?
Well, I didn't go out in the rain in them, and I wore socks the same colour as the shoes, so nobody would notice. But, unfortunately, eventually I had to just throw them away because my feet got too big.
Yeah.
That was a pity.
How bizarre.
Yes.
My final pair is a pair of shoes I bought in Scotland, actually, when I was working up there. And it was the most expensive pair of shoes I've ever bought.
Tartan?
They were not tartan, no. They were beautiful black pointy leather shoes made by Dolce & Gabbana. And the reason I bought them is I wandered into this shop one day just because it was a new sort of shop that had opened up in Buchanan Street. And I've always liked pointy shoes, and it was very hard to buy them at certain times of my life. Because
I think pointy shoes look a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, but these were almost like winkle pickers. I mean, they were absolutely beautiful. They were amazing, beautiful, very, very elegant.
And you think you're a bit out of date with
black
winkle
lace-up shoes? No, but the thing that astonished me the most was that I actually agreed to pay them £275
for the shoes.
For the shoes, yeah.
God, blimey, they saw you coming, didn't they?
No, they didn't. It's Dolce & Gabbana shoes. I mean, they're not cheap.
Yeah, but I mean, to buy a pair of pinkle wickers when you're winkle pickers. Twice the age of the people should wear them, and then
what do you mean twice the age?
Well, people wore winkle pickers in their teens. They don't wear them in their 40s.
No, well, you see, I've always been slightly ahead of the curve when it comes to the fashion that I wear,
or behind the curve, more.
Thankfully, I don't creep around in the sort of shoes that you wear. It's like you bought them from Mothercare.
No, it doesn't.
Anyway, they were very beautiful shoes, and I was able to say once I had gone into a bit of a rumble with a guy who used to read. I think he may be the editor of the Sunday Times in Scotland.
Oh yes,
but he used to write stories, all of which didn't used to come true.
Right,
and his name was Anderson, so I christened him in our gossip column Hans Christian.
Right,
because he was always making stories up, and he threatened to sue me.
Really?
And I saw him at some.
Go round there and kick him half to death with the winkle pickers.
Well, I saw him at some do right, and this I was going to go over and have a word with him, but suddenly this lawyer appeared and started talking to me and saying, "Oh, well, did you not try and sort this all out?" And I was able to say to him, "Look, well, if he doesn't withdraw this, lawsuit that he's apparently threatening me with, tell him I'm going to turn up, as you quite rightly said, at his office and kick him to death with my beautiful Dolce & Gabbana black shoes."
Excellent.
And so that worked.
So that was a threat of violence.
It was, yeah.
I mean, a serious threat of intent.
Well, I mean, it was all done in the spirit.
Did the police in Scotland know about this?
No, because it didn't come to anything because he then backed off.
Well, that's a threat of violence. It's a criminal offence.
No, and it's not.
No,
it was not a threat of violence. It was something that was said in jest. But
so you say.
Now, those are the three pairs of shoes for me and the three pairs of shoes for you.
Indeed.
Extraordinary.
Yeah.
This is talkSPORT. This is the two mics on talkSPORT with Wix. Wix have lowered the price on Blue Circle general purpose cement. Get 25 kilograms for just $3.79 each when you buy 3 or more. Now, here's what we didn't get around to talking about. The show's nearly over, but we should mention Andy Murray because yesterday,
without doubt,
you might remember Toby Giddies came in and broke the news that basically he's out for the rest of the season.
Yep.
He's going to be playing in a charity match on November the 7th in Glasgow against Roger Federer, who's just been knocked out of the US Open. But as a result of the fact that he's not any longer, he pulled out of the US Open. He won't be playing, I presume, in the ATP finals down at the O2, which usually happen in November. He's drifted down to number 15 in the world or something, isn't he?
I'll tell you how it's going to work, Mike. He will have done by the time we get to November. After the November the 6th, right, Paris, right?
Yes.
The ATP finals and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If he doesn't get into that, he'll drop down to 15. At the same time, I didn't realise that Novak Djokovic, for the very same region injuries, has already dropped down to number 12. But Andy will slide down the rankings with each tournament that he can't do. So, for instance, Beijing, where he won last year, Shanghai, where he won last year, Vienna, where he won last year, OK? And because he's not taking part in any of those, the US Open quarter-finalist last year didn't get any points this year because he wasn't in it, and he'll slide down to 15. What I don't quite get is, what is a hip injury for a tennis player?
What do you mean? What do you mean, what is a hip injury? Are
they talking about the joint between... the hip and when people have hip joint replacements, are they talking about that joint?
Well, I presume so. I think what it is it's something that limits his mobility. So it means that whenever he's moving, because if you think about hitting a tennis stroke,
exactly,
right, you are moving your hips, aren't you?
Of course you are.
You're pivoting
that's right.
part of your body, right?
Yeah.
So presumably it is the joint where it meets the other joint.
Yes, that's right.
Where the hip bone meets, whatever other bones meet it.
That's right. The ball and socket type hip joint.
That's it. Yeah.
Now. One newspaper this morning has published a strap across the back saying, will Andy ever be a tennis titan again?
Yeah. Will we ever see Murray regain his full powers? I think it's a very good question. I have to say the answer is probably no.
Andy Murray has admitted that his miserable season has most likely come to an end. It's all down to the hip injury that's troubled him throughout this summer, and even during the time when for 41 consecutive weeks he was the number one in the world, OK?
Yeah.
But he says that rather than go into surgery, and you have to say, once any sportsman gets into the surgery business, it usually is the start of the end. It was for Tiger Woods.
And he's already had a couple.
He has already had surgery.
And I think the thing is, Tiger Woods discovered this as well, because of the way that he hit the golf ball.
Yeah.
He used every single muscle and sinew in his body.
That's right.
And as he got older, he found that was creating a lot of wear and tear, and I think that's what Andy Murray's finding.
And if you're focusing on one part of the body on a particular swing or a stroke in tennis, it then impounds and impacts on other parts of your body.
Exactly.
So, for instance, Serene Botham, once he started having to have surgery on his back, Freddie Flintoff, the same, for injuries brought on by the demands of their own sport, it can be the start of the end. Now, it says here that Andy Murray's been over in America. He's consulted several specialists since withdrawing from the US Open, which was only 10 days ago. He withdrew about 2 weeks ago, didn't he?
He withdrew just before it started.
Yeah, and has decided an operation is now not necessary, but he will focus on a long period of rehabilitation, missing the Asian tournaments next month and in all likelihood all the remaining indoor European tournaments, including the ATP World Tour finals in London, which is the one at the O2 you were talking about.
As for Roger Federer, Roger Federer has been quite smart about the way that he's sort of managed to continue to play much older into a much later time in his life than you would expect.
Yeah.
Because he only picks and chooses which tournaments he plays in. But, you always get the sense with Roger Federer that he could win another Grand Slam. It's getting harder and harder for him. He was knocked out of the US Open only yesterday, I think.
Yeah.
But, with Murray, I think his style of play means that if he hasn't got that kind of strength and that stamina anymore because of all these injuries, he's not going to be as good as he was.
The thing is, isn't this a bit of, what am I looking at? Isn't it a bit of catch-22? Didn't he play in every possible tournament he could at this time last year to try and get to that number one spot?
That's right.
He was desperate to get there, to accumulate the points. And he got there, right? So what the people in the tennis world are now asking were the demands made upon him by... I've just read out to you how successful he was. After the US Open, where he finished as a quarter-finalist, right, his world ranking was number 3. He then went on to Beijing, where he won. He then went on to Shanghai, where he won. He went on to Vienna, where he won.
Yeah.
And he was still desperate to, to get his points rankings up until he became number 1.
Yeah.
Now, if that has put so much pressure on his body, as you quite rightly
But also,
say,
it's much more difficult to hang on to that number 1 as well, because every tournament that you play in, if you don't do as well as you did the last time, for example, if last time you won it, and this time you get knocked out in the semi-final, you lose points. You go down the rankings.
You do.
Shocking situation.
It is a shocking situation.
I hope he's able to recover, and I hope he's able to get fixed
and
be back on the circuit, because he's the only great reason for watching tennis if you're a British fan,
totally
really, because there's nobody else worth watching in the men's game.
Having said that, if he had to retire tomorrow, my goodness me, what a stellar career he's had.
Oh, absolutely.
You become Wimbledon champion twice.
Yeah.
If you walked up and
Got
down...
the gold medal in the Olympics.
Gold medal in the Olympics. If you walked around the world, you would never meet somebody who had won the Wimbledon title twice, would you? You know what I mean?
Well, it depends where you walk. Well, if you walk down to Wimbledon during the times when the tennis game's on, you can meet a whole load of them.
Yeah, you could do. Yeah, that's true.
Every day we give away £100 worth of Wix vouchers. Today our winner is Vernon, the Chelsea fan, who's very worried about the development of Stamford Bridge and how that is going to create nightmare problems for many Chelsea fans. This is talkSPORT.
Don't forget to come back tomorrow for another sparkling, as fizzy as a bottle of champagne podcast from the two mics.